I present to you the greatest revenge of all time. Our story today begins with our desperate protagonist fleeing through the forest. And even as he falls from the top of the mountain, he cannot escape his pursuers. One of them calls our protagonist Prince Cheon Yeo Woon and congratulates him, as he had been running for over an hour and they only just now managed to capture the lad. The boy tries to argue, saying he did everything they asked, even gave up the academy, so why do they still threaten his life? They say that even though he is a commoner, he still has the slightest claim to the throne. As long as he's alive he'll have rights, and they can't let him live. The leader of the ninjas says that if the protagonist surrenders, he'll have a painless death, but the boy refuses, saying he'd rather fight to the end. I like this guy's spirit. The ninjas move to finish their mission of eliminating the protagonist, who tries to resist and fight in some way, but he can't. Caught by the neck, the ninja still jokes, asking if that's all he's got. At that moment, the secret blade shocks them all. How could this untrained commoner, without skills, manage to hold a sword and resist like this? They soon realize that if he had training like the others, he would be a great threat to the royal family, so they say he must die tonight regardless. The protagonist didn't even see the knee that probably broke all his teeth. No, it's all here! A ninja makes a fatal wound on the boy. The scream was so loud it woke up the entire forest. For eliminating one of their own, he steps on the wound before finishing the job. As they were about to deliver the final blow, a bright light shines and whoever was about to strike is disintegrated. From 3 different angles, they realize who must be responsible and point to a stylish, futuristic teenager. At the sign of another attack, the bright light dazzles again, and they're all disintegrated in the blink of an eye. The last ninja knows that such ability is not normal, so he flees, leaving his mission behind. But with just a raise of the hand, he's eliminated while still in the air. Accepting that his life was already over, he at least feels happy to see that they got what they deserved, closing his eyes and waiting for death to come. The futuristic teenager, not at all sad, says he's out of time and asks his ancestor to make his life good in the future. After the mysterious injection, he hears a robotic voice in his head and the protagonist faints. The mysterious youth disappears forever. Long ago, waking up the next day with dark spots all over his body, he realizes his body is covered in dark spots. He hears a voice in his head asking if the master has finally awakened. The protagonist, not understanding, asks who's speaking in his head and how is that possible. The voice says it's a nano machine. He understood nano machine instead of machine, and machine means evil god in Chinese. Now Cheon Yun thinks he's possessed by an evil god. Meanwhile, 2 elders of the demon cult walk while discussing the assassination attempt on Prince Cheon Yun. The person who found the protagonist describes the scene as a battlefield, with many disturbing things around, and there was the prince sleeping peacefully amidst that terrible scene without any injuries. They go to the room to visit the boy, who was still talking to the evil nano machine. Prince Cheon asks if it was the nano machine that saved him yesterday. She says it depends. If it's about eliminating the ninjas, then no, it wasn't her, as she was still in the syringe. But if it's about activating the healing process, then yes. Nano machines are a thing of the future. Explaining this to a person from the past millennium wouldn't be possible. So, the nano machine asks if she can send the information directly from his brain. What's a brain? Never mind, yes, you can. Now, Cheon Yun understands what a nano machine is. Meanwhile, the 2 people arrive at his room. He pretends to be asleep to avoid talking to them. Let's come back later. Now, kid, you stink. There's no way to avoid it with that smell. The doctor approaches and recognizes the boy. Cheon confirms that yes, the doctor treated his mother. Feeling his pulse, he finds something very strange. What is it, doctor? Is he going to die? Quite the opposite. His body is in great shape. He's perfect for a martial artist. These dark spots on his body are toxins being expelled. Did he take some kind of super secret special medicine? Thinking about it, the protagonist wonders if the evil god in his head is real. The demon cult was formed by several families, but only 6 core sects. Every 10 years, the demon cult's academy opens to train the best warriors of the generation. When princes join the academy, it's called the period of great battles of the heirs. The doctor doesn't find answers, so he just prescribes some tonics for further recovery. When he leaves, he wonders how someone can improve so much overnight. When the prince was young, he thought he would die due to his fragility and lack of knowledge. But now he can learn to fight and stand among the best princes and even compete against them. Cheon Yun is alive today only because his guard, Jang, protected him. Now he orders him to go take a bath, clean up, and change clothes. In the bath, he decides to test his healing ability. Using a blade, he cuts himself deeply. Before his eyes, he learns that his body can regenerate very quickly. He didn't believe the voice in his head, but now he sees that it's true. Moreover, the nano machine has made his body incredibly powerful. Later in the library, another thing he can do now is super fast reading. He can flip through a book in 10 seconds and absorb all the content. I imagine myself at my school with this. I would be amazing. Now that the rejected prince has discovered his new infinite potential, he can now get revenge on all those who treated him badly. The first one to suffer at his hands will be the prince who sent the ninjas after him. This same boy received information that his family's ninjas failed to carry out his order to eliminate the bastard prince, tarnishing the name of the demon demon cult. He says he'll deal with that bastard at the academy. The next day, the protagonist was thinking that today is the day he'll join the academy. It would be good if he had already learned some combat skills before going to the academy. He watches guard Young train, then the nano machine asks if he wants an analysis of the guard's movements. He stays there for almost an hour watching the movements while analyzing. After that, the nano informs that she has finished analyzing the guard's movements. It's installed directly in his brain, and he tests it to see, and it already works 100%. No, actually, not quite. At least one thing doesn't work. He has the knowledge in his head, but the muscles aren't used to the movements of this martial art. So he has to train the muscles first, but she says he can also make changes to his body. He won't even need to train to use the technique, only it will hurt. He accepts, and it doesn't hurt that much, but when it really happens, he faints. When the prince's protector remembers that he's alone, hours in a place where there are people who want to kill him, he rushes to see how the boy is. Arriving there, all he finds is the prince passed out in bed. He also sees that the son of a bitch destroyed the room's floor. Astutely, he also realizes that these footprints are from his training movements, and that the prince is watching his training secretly, and training secretly too. It's true, guys, a lot of training indeed. Nano training. When he wakes up later with all DLCs installed, his knowledge and body are now ready for fighting techniques. He tries to use the technique again and breaks the floor once more. The next moment, the guard arrives with the boy's breakfast, who hides the broken floor with the table. He thinks the guard didn't notice. The protagonist remembers that this will be his last day with the guard, as he's going to the academy. It's been almost 5 years since his mother died, and the guard has been taking care of him since then. Then the guard removes the table and asks since when he learned his dagger technique. Prince Cheon is surprised, as in their culture taking others' techniques is forbidden, and that's what he did with the nano machine, so it's unforgivable. But instead of getting upset and judging the boy, the guard is happy. He hands over the technique manual and tells the protagonist that he only didn't teach him because traditions don't allow it. But since he learned it on his own, he did well, and he cries. Even though the boy promised in the past that he wouldn't cry anymore since his mother's death, the guard says it's okay. He can cry now in front of him, as long as he stays strong to go to the academy. Gentlemen, this guy is amazing! So, finally, the protagonist goes for the first day at the academy. The warrior who will make the speech for the new students tells everyone that this place may be the last they'll see in life, so be careful. He doesn't seem to believe in the potential of the students there, but when he looks to the front, where the 6 heirs of the demon sect are, he changes his mind and presents to us the names of the mortal rivals of our rejected prince.
Number 1, Cheon Yeo from the Shadow sect. Number 2, Cheon Yeo Woon from the Sword sect. Number 3, Cheon Moo Kyung from the Spring sect. Number 4, Cheon Jang Sum from the Poison sect. Number 5, Cheon Yu Chan from the Blade sect. Number 6, Cheon Wonryo from the Sound sect.
The red-haired man says that this time there's only one female candidate. What a shame. Moreover, the 7th heir isn't here. When he goes to get his ticket, the entry for the 7th son isn't on the list, so he doesn't receive the entry to go to the venue. Therefore, he has to stay at the back like everyone else who isn't important. Meanwhile, the gossip speaking ill of the prince is spreading. That's great. When he starts humiliating everyone, I want to see the look on their faces. Finally, the main event, the arrival of the Lord and his guardians to welcome the students. And for some reason, one of the Lord's guardians likes to drink a lot. So, the leader of the guardians orders them to be silent because, Your Majesty, is going to speak. This is the leader of the demonic cult, one of the top 5 strongest in all of Murin, the incredible Lord Jeon Jang. When he speaks, everyone trembles in fear at his overwhelming presence. The Lord welcomes everyone, saying that everyone there is the future and pride of the cult. So, train hard, make friends, and be great soldiers for me in the future. That's all. Before leaving, he takes a look at the 7th prince, turns his back, and leaves. He's the boy's father, but still, the protagonist is a son of his castle servant, not from any of the main clans. So, Cheon Yun himself says he didn't expect anything from him. The formalities are over. The academy director begins to explain how the 4 years of the students at the academy will be. Each of them will only have one chance to pass each stage. Whoever fails some of the tests is expelled from the academy. One of the princes raises his hand, saying he has a question. The director rejects it and asks if questions were authorized. The director explains that when you enter the academy, you lose all your privileges from the 6 families here. So, if he doesn't want to be expelled on the first day, he should shut up. The princes humiliate the protagonist, but in the eyes of the academy, everyone is equal. I already like this guy too. He says the kid's question must be obvious, that one chance to pass each stage is very unfair. However, he says there are benefits you gain when you pass each stage. A black dragon sphere, the richest library in the kingdom. Each stage they pass, they'll gain access to a new floor in it. This way, they can strengthen themselves at each stage. Now, everyone is excited. The rewards are great. But the person who just boosted the boys' morale throws and at the vast majority won't even make it halfway through the stages. So, to worsen everyone's morale, when you enter the academy, you lose all your privileges. And when you leave, your ranking in society will depend on the level you reached in the academy. So, whoever Whoever fails the first test can look for a job as a farmer. The first test is to sift out those who don't have potential. Anyone with little or no Nigong is screwed. Cheon Yun is in trouble. The prince made a deal in the past that he would never learn Nigong, so they wouldn't secretly kill him. Cheon Yun never learned, but still, the scoundrel here ordered him to be eliminated. The Sound clan will do the first test now, and only those who have at least some training will be able to stand for the necessary time. The test begins, and upon hearing this music, it's very intense. The weakest students started to fall. The 6 princes trained from birth with all possible resources don't even feel difficulty. But then the woman starts playing louder. For some reason, she's getting angry, and the princes begin to notice that it's becoming difficult even for them to endure. People deep down are bleeding from their ears, but the woman doesn't stop, and it gets more intense. The woman's intention is to bring down the 7th prince, whom she hates, without caring about the rest of the students falling. One of the princes wonders why this woman is playing even louder and louder. Then he looks back to see what it is. Then he realizes our beloved protagonist showing no signs of fatigue. How is this possible? He doesn't even know Nigong, or does he? Everyone starts feeling the pressure from the bad music. The old woman holds a grudge against the protagonist, and will do anything for him to fail this test, so she keeps increasing the music. She crosses the line. Even the princes would fail if the director didn't intervene. He ends the exam. The nano machine that has total control over Cheon Yun's body blocks his hearing, but realizing that almost everyone nearly died here, and he, who has no kind of training, doesn't seem to have been affected by the test, would be very strange. When the test ends, he orders the nano machine to inflict internal injuries on him. As a result, he vomits a little blood to make a scene. Proud of this kid, he already passed the test, deceiving everyone with intelligence. Besides, he gained the respect of the redhead when he sees that the boy doesn't have a drop of Nigong. The kid passed the test only with the strength of determination. He sends the boy to the infirmary and goes to exchange some words with the Elder of Sound. He says she went too far and failed almost everyone, besides almost killing one of the sovereign's sons. She admits she was wrong and went overboard. Then the redhead says the boy doesn't have a drop of Nigong. She says she doesn't believe it because it doesn't make sense. The director insists he checked himself. The kid endured everything in determination. The 2 guardians who don't seem to like each other face off a little, and then the redhead asks him to leave. He says he will, but it's not because he ordered, it's because the drink ran out. The princes feel something coming their way. They don't know if it's their power or the strong scent of alcohol. The drunk guardian leaves thinking the boy is amazing, endured everything without any energy, while these excited kids are hopeless. The redhead admits that he also liked the boy and that if he weren't of royal lineage, he would take him as a disciple because the kid has potential. The other princes also got hurt by the test, but no one seems to have cared about them. In the infirmary, the doctor, upon hearing that there's a patient coming, gets excited to be able to work. He asks what happened. How many stabs did he take to be bleeding like this? The guards say it's not that. They're internal injuries because he resisted the attack from the sound lady for a long time without having any Nigong. The guards leave now, but one of them takes a look at the protagonist before and says that this kid isn't as bad as minutes ago. The nano machines healed him from the inside, so he's just pretending to be injured. A drunk guard breaks the door, entering the place, leaving the doctor annoyed. But because of the hierarchy, he can't complain much. Meanwhile, the boy pretends to be injured and sleeping, but the guardian approaches and says hi. He asks until when he's going to keep pretending to be asleep. He keeps pretending to be asleep, so the guy uses magic, lifts him and says that if he doesn't stop now, he'll get slapped on the ear. Finally, the prince gives up and asks how he knew it was pretending. The drunk guy finds it funny and says it was because of the speed of his breathing. Someone who's unconscious doesn't breathe like that. The guardian says that kids nowadays are all spoiled and take the easiest path, full of whims. He says he liked the protagonist, that he has determination the other students don't have. He releases the ability he made for him to sit down. The guardian says he wants the boy as a disciple. Surprised, Cheon can't believe that one of the most powerful guys in the kingdom wants to be his master, so suspiciously, he asks if the drunk knows who he is. He says yes, he's the useless bastard son of the Lord. He disagrees with the last part, but it doesn't matter. If he does this, the other 6 noble families will be against him. The guardian says he's not in favor of him anyway, so it doesn't matter. But what will you teach me? How to drink? The man knows he grew up as the bastard son everyone wants to get rid of, so he's already suspicious of something so convenient. The boy thinks it's better not to. This is an academy. He won't lack teachers here. But then the drunk explains that things won't be easy for him here. For example, everyone who got hurt after the last exam ended wasn't sent to the infirmary, only the boy. That's because everyone else used Nigong to heal themselves. The prince who doesn't know how to do that is the only one here. In other words, if the prince doesn't learn Nigong, he won't stand a chance here. The only way he'll learn that is with 2 hours a day on the first floor of the library. Faced with all these arguments, the only thing the prince thinks about is how much he'll be able to enter that library and use the hack machine to speed run reading. But he he realizes that even with the nano machine, he's at a huge disadvantage, so he accepts, yes, to be the drunk's disciple and bows before his master. Look how cool. The master says that the blood Cheon should not bow before anyone and lifts the boy using Nigong. In other words, the royal blood is the Cheon blood, so the drunk master recognizes him as a true prince. Guys, I'm going to cry. Now I won't call him drunk anymore. The right guardian pats the doctor and tells him to take care of his student well. The doctor congratulates the prince. The guy who never takes students today made a point of having the boy as his disciple. And behind the scenes, because it's forbidden to have masters from outside the academy here, but he won't tell, the doctor is a good guy. Meanwhile, on the training field, the class is cultivating. Someone tells the left guardian that a total of 415 students passed the first test. The guardian says it was 200 fewer people than in the last test 10 years ago, and that's because this year's test was very difficult. The students who didn't pass are revolted at the academy. He tells those who didn't pass and found the test very difficult that the test was difficult because of the 7th Prince Cheon. But regardless of that, accept their fate, then forcibly expels all of them from the academy. The guardian also says that this year the competition will be stronger since the level is higher due to the difficulty of the first test. Among the talents, the number 1 prince of the Dark Clan and the number 5 prince of the Sword Clan are the great talents of this generation. It is very likely that one of these two will be the successor to the great leader. The guardian says that from today on, groups will be formed, and the next tests will be in groups, so either everyone in the group fails or everyone passes. From today on, everyone will be trained by the tactics and techniques team. Take advantage and look at the faces of these teachers, who are all very friendly. After class, the prince who tried to kill Cheon Yun before tells the instructor that one person from his team is in the infirmary and hasn't received the news. He doesn't want his team to fail because of one guy, so he wants to give him the news to keep him informed. The instructor congratulates the prince and says he understands the meaning of the next group work test and says he will go there himself to give information to this student in the infirmary. The instructor warns that only those who are injured can go to the infirmary. Smirking maliciously, the boy says it's okay. The protagonist will undergo acupuncture treatment for 14 days. That's all to disguise. He can't heal overnight to avoid arousing suspicion because everyone knows he can't use Nigong. The instructor from Prince Cheon Yun's team went to the infirmary to talk to the boy, but his doctor didn't allow it and warned that for 14 days, he won't leave here. The next test is in 3 weeks. Until then, he will have to learn everything he needs on his own in the infirmary with his secret teacher. In the dead of night, the legendary Yasuo sneaks into the prince's room to instill Nigong within him, believing it will make him stronger. The master arrives, stating that tonight, Prince Cheon will learn what he should already know. Injecting his own energy, he clears the path for the prince's own flow to run freely. For someone who's never trained, the prince has the perfect physique, like a god of war. Could this be the influence of the Lord on the child? It wouldn't be surprising, as the only woman the Lord truly cared for was this boy's mother. That same night, fights erupted in all the dormitories to decide the leaders. A cadet beat the prince of the Poison Clan and all the other students. His name is Baek Ji-ai, the new leader of Group 18. Back in the infirmary, after hours, the guardian finished unlocking the prince's Nigong veins. It was extremely exhausting and likely painful, but the prince insists he's fine, not feeling a thing. The guardian tells him he has 1 more week to learn to use his Nigong before leaving. Seeing how tired he is, Prince Cheon recognizes his effort and becomes even more determined. Pleased with the prince, the guardian advises him to always remember breathing and flow before departing. With these words, the prince thanks his mentor, determined to master it in a week. This marks the beginning of his journey for revenge. The next day, at the training center, the guardian divided the class into groups, assigning each prince to a different group. That night, the groups would decide their leaders. As expected, each prince became the leader of their group, showcasing their power and superiority. However, one prince didn't become a leader. His face bruised, he stood in front of his group's leader. Another prince taunts him for failing to become a leader, especially the prince our protagonist hates the most. The prince of the Poison Clan grows angry, vowing revenge later. I want to see how far this goes. I'm enjoying it. After class, the prince asks the teacher how many days until his teammate leaves the infirmary. The answer, 1 more week. Frustrated he can't attack his nemesis yet, in the dorm, he takes out his anger on everyone. One of his allies suggests that if Prince Cheon Yun won't leave the infirmary, where the injured go, they can send someone there. The doctor in the infirmary, with only Cheon Yun as a patient, suddenly receives a new patient with a sword lodged in his back. After stitching him up, he'll have to stay in the infirmary for 3 days alongside Cheon Yun. Now I get the plan. Sent during the night to injure Cheon Yun, the plan seemed right, but trying to sever his ligaments triggered the nano machine's defense system. A surge of electricity ran through him, causing him to pass out. This noise wakes our protagonist, and seeing what just happened fills him with rage. Later, the attacker wakes up tired, confused about how he was knocked out. The calm prince tells him the sleeping beauty has finally awakened. The boy panics when Cheon Yun shows him his now shaved head, the pride of a warrior. Cheon Yun hits him to calm him down. He has more important things to do. He asserts his dominance, demanding to know who sent him. When the boy refuses to cooperate, Cheon Yun threatens to cut him if he doesn't spill everything. Finally removing his gag, the attacker claims students can harm each other outside the combat field, so he can't do anything to him. Cheon Yun promises to do something that won't leave marks for the teachers or anyone to notice. Just seeing those needles got me scared, guys. He covers his mouth again and puts it on his fingers. Only after fainting twice and having his whole hand operated on does he decide it's time to talk. However, the prince already removes his gag and says he already knows it's Prince Mujiam. How do you know? Cheon Yun says the instructor comes here every day, so he asks about what's going on outside, knows which group he's in, the Spring Clan Prince's interest in him, and his leadership of the group. At that moment, Cadet 23 called Hyobang remembers they said this guy is dead weight, but that's not what he found out today. He swears he won't tell anyone what happened today, so don't hurt him anymore. However, Cheon Yun says he needs to sleep and delivers a Nigong blow that knocks him out. As his consciousness fades, the bald guy realizes this guy does have Nigong. Yes, he's deceiving everyone. That's our protagonist, ruthless, powerful, and thirsty to surpass everyone. I'm really enjoying this story. Please leave a like on the video to show me if you guys like this guy too. The master who visits his student every night with all the excitement in the world because he's a monster, and he'll have merit in it. Arriving there, he'll take Cheon Yun's reward, the Black Dragon Sphere. At that moment, he discovers there's a body in the infirmary with him. The protagonist calmly says that's a cadet who came to the infirmary with an intentional injury to try to kill him. Unconcerned, he says he already knows who ordered it, one of the princes, and it's fine, he's used to it. The master is sad. A child shouldn't be used to this. He says he'll need friends from now on. That'll be important. But enough of that. It's time to install another hack. With this sphere he brought, the protagonist will progress more than 20 years in Nigong training. If he knows how to take advantage, they start the assimilation, and every day he's more of a monster. Soon Sung Jin won't stand a chance. Kid, what happened to your hair? Don't say anything else. I'll leave you alone. The extra was sent to eliminate the protagonist from being a competitor to the throne, and the only thing eliminated was his hair. After the bald guy left the infirmary and told the master he failed in the mission, a bad person like him humiliates the bald guy who failed. The bald guy covers his head and says that the one who tried to kill the protagonist woke up. After that, the doctor didn't leave the room. He didn't have a chance to try anything. The doctor didn't even sleep again in those 2 days he stayed there. The prince is annoyed that the doctor is so perceptive and protects the boy. Even though it seems like Cadet 23 wasn't at fault, his leader beats him and calls him an incompetent piece of trash. Finally calming down and saying he'll handle it on his own when he gets out of there. While still hitting the bald guy, Hyobang remembers how kind he was when he asked for this favor, but now he treats him like this. So he decided not to tell about the protagonist's true abilities. When the time comes, he'll find out on his own. Cheon Yeo Woon kept training in Xiao Meng's martial arts, the right guardian of the cult. This time, Cheon trained a new technique, and his movements were much better than before. Meng watched the training very closely and was amazed by Cheon Yeo Woon's genius. In just a few days, Meng showed the shadow butterfly step a few times, but now Cheon can confidently demonstrate these movements himself. The protagonist decided to show only the basic movements he learned by watching his master, fearing to raise suspicions if Cheon Yeo could perfectly mimic just by looking. Meng thinks that if he had more time, he could teach all the movements of the technique. Throughout the week, he managed to master the basic movements. He praised his student and said that Cheon had mastered them well. Meng gave him a piece of paper containing information about the butterfly technique so he could study it on his own. Morning was the last day of classes with Professor Meng. Cheon Yeo thanked the professor again. Satisfied, Meng pulled out his blade and showed it to his student. Cheon's surprised face reflected in the sword. Meng then threw his sword so he could feel its weight, which is 3 times lighter than a regular sword. It's a treasure of his clan. He demonstrated its cutting power, slicing through a solid piece of wood effortlessly. As the boy would leave the infirmary tomorrow and showed him the complete movements, Cheon Yeo paid close attention as his master began, asking the nanopad to start analyzing. In the morning, his master Meng left the infirmary. 2 people were mysteriously watching from afar, the left guardian and the central guardian. The red-haired director of the academy questioned why the central guardian had always been protecting this boy. His answer was simple: it's fair. He left the redhead alone, who then wondered if 10 days of training would make things fair. That morning, when the doctor went to the infirmary, he noticed something different. Cheon Yeo Woon was always awake in the morning, but this time he was sleeping. He decided to do the same and sleep, but Cheon Yeo Woon wasn't sleeping as he should. The doctor woke up startled by a noise. His only patient began vomiting. Worried, he made him lie down again and checked his pulse. It left him in doubt. The pulse of someone who is asleep shouldn't be so rapid. What's stranger is he suddenly calmed down. The doctor began to doubt his medical knowledge and went back to sleep. After a few hours, Cheon Yeo Woon woke up. 8 hours of sleep were needed for the nanopad to act. His body was now adapted to the new technique he had just learned. His master showed the technique to his family so he could train. Yesterday was the last day he could train him. From now on, he must evolve on his own. Meng asked him to be careful and to strive to do well. This made Cheon Yeo Woon happy. It's the first time someone else has cared for him. Testing his new condition. His master has no idea his technique has already been 100% learned. His body is now fully capable. While testing his body, Cheon Yeo Woon realized his senses are sharper. He could sense the doctor coming from the other side of the wall. Dr. Baek Jongmin came to bring the cadet uniform. Now he's number 7, representing being the 7th prince. The doctor also wishes him luck from now on, and says he'll be sad to have no more patients to care for. With malice, young Cheon Yeo says that soon he will have many patients to treat, then thanks the doctor for his care and leaves. At the infirmary door, he stops for a moment and says that the doctor was also great to him, keeping his training secret and taking good care of him. Cheon Yeo Woon will never forget that. Later, when went to the academy training, everyone was surprised to see the student who never came before. Prince Mujium was eager to destroy the brother he hated so much. An instructor asks if he's well enough to participate in the classes. He says yes, he's fully recovered. When asked if he knows how this class works in theory, he says yes. Then, he must grab that sword and shield and take his position. Passing by his brother, Prince Mujium asks if he was afraid to hide in the infirmary. However, Mujium is totally ignored. Being ignored by someone as arrogant as him hurts his hatred deeply. Meanwhile, Cheon Yeo just observes what's happening. Soon, he will show his place. The professor announces that training will begin now, and if there's any accident again, the person will be expelled. Each team leader must lead their group in a battle simulation. The professor placed Prince Cheon Yeo in an easier position, expecting him not to keep up with the others. But in fact, he's doing better than expected. For 15 minutes, the simulations continued. The instructor was surprised how other students were already at their limit, yet Cheon Yeo, who had been in the infirmary for 14 days, was doing fine. Then, he decides to change his place. Prince Mujium continues giving orders to his group as they advance. In a new position, his brother Cheon Yeo doesn't make any mistakes, which irritated Mujium. Therefore, he ordered one of his servants to obey him and do what he commands now. When the time comes and they're in formation, he should attack Cheon Yeo, take him out of formation. When it was the perfect time, he put his foot on his back to kick him. However, the protagonist had noticed and mocked him. When he tried to kick with all his force, the Nano machine's defense system activated, and he was thrown back several meters, dragging himself. He didn't understand what happened here. Could it be that Cheon Yeo's Nigong is stronger than mine? The troublesome student lying on the ground, the professor approaches and says, "Him again? The same boy who last time injured his fellow with a sword. He had to go to the infirmary." The irritated student looked at the protagonist and saw him smiling. This made him grind his teeth in anger. The professor standing in front of him asked if that expression was for him. Because of this insolence, he struck his student in the chest and said that from today, Cadet 23 for the next 4 days will have no day off. And if he has any questions, can he speak now?
Why you bully me?
At this moment, Prince Mujium and his group became a joke. The arrogant student defended by the prince was now humiliated. Prince Mujium was filled with hatred for this. Watching everyone in training, the academy director wonders if Cheon Yeo already has a higher Nigong level than that boy then. It was said that he was untalented, so maybe it's true that being the Lord's son, even if he hasn't had training, talent runs in his veins. All the prince can do now is to send disapproving looks to his brother, as he can't attack him. Later, in the weapons hall, the students are allowed to have lunch. Everyone will eat chicken and other meats. The protagonist is happy because everything tastes so good. However, his brother's hateful or irritating look bothers him. Can't he even enjoy his meal and stop it? This makes him think, why does he hate so much if they've never even seen each other? The protagonist just thinks they don't know what suffering is. None of them saw their own mother die helpless, so he can't wait to destroy them all. Later, after everyone ate, the cadets were dismissed, except for Cadet 80. He's under punishment. Content: Cheon Yeo observes that things are improving. Now, all students are heading to the library. There, his brother awaited him leaning against a pillar. And as always, he's with stronger people by his side. He's a coward. This commotion catches the attention of other people, including the princess. His sister watches from afar. The prince, now that he has an audience, begins his show. He goes up to Prince Cheon Yeo Woon and calls him a dirty blood. He says that until now, it has been easy since he was lying in the infirmary. So he asks if someone of dirty blood like him is annoyed. Cheon Yeo Woon questions if he's insulting the Lord, because calling someone who has his blood dirty is the same as saying that the Lord's blood is dirty. The protagonist ironically asks if he's so powerful that he can even insult the Lord of the cult. The situation turns against the prince of the Spring clan. His sister then says he's really dumb to do that. Farther away, the prince of the Sword clan says his brother is an idiot. Feeling humiliated, Mujium grabs him by the shirt and attacks the protagonist. However, in the blink of an eye, a punch hits his face and he falls. Cheon Yeo Woon then asks if he feels annoyed. The prince, who has never been disrespected or hurt, screams in frustration, "You worm! How dare you do this to me?" The prince then attacks his brother. Mujium hits the void. Cheon Yeo Woon easily dodges, and after getting some distance, he flees the scene. This ability to move surprises surprises his brothers. He shouldn't be able to move like that. The prince screams for his allies to pursue. As he holds his nose, he says he can't let him live, can't even consider him human. As they chase the protagonist, they find it odd. He seems to be running just enough so they can't get close to him. After a while, the prince also catches up to his men, shouting why they haven't caught him yet. Confidently, he says he will crush every bone of Cheon Yeo Woon. After a few minutes of running, the protagonist finally stops. He asks if they're tired of running. As he prepares his attack, he shouts there's no reason to show off. The prince blocks his blow and is thrown back. He says he defended the blow using Nigong and still got pushed back. His Nigong is strong, the angry prince says. So you know martial arts. Museum thinks it's strange. In the first test, he didn't have any Nigong at all. So what happened for him to get so strong? Cheon Yeo continues attacking his brother. When the others manage to arrive, they see the fight, which is intense. The prince also manages to retaliate and hits him in the stomach. The protagonist says he'll take a few hits and defends against others. Despite everything, his opponent is still strong, but he can still endure this battle. Quickly, he goes after the prince and almost hits him in the head. The prince then dodges and hits him directly in the face. Now confident, the prince says he's trash, doesn't even know how to retaliate. The protagonist on the ground just watches with a concerned look. The prince, mocking him, says imitating others' techniques is beyond his limit. Truly, the protagonist admits he underestimated him, recognizes that the prince has more combat experience. However, Cheon Yeo Woon closely observes his enemy when the prince attacks using one of his techniques. Using the nano machine to analyze his movements and identify the weak point, at the right moment, he dodges and hits his opponent directly with an uppercut to the chin. The attack was so strong it could have even broken his teeth. This surprised Cheon Yeo Woon. The prince takes some distance, holding his teeth in his mouth. The protagonist now realizes he can use the nano machine to analyze movements. The move he just used is from boxing, something the nano machine has in its database. Angry, he now attacks, throwing several punches at once. Cheon Yeo Woon easily dodges. His enemy's movements are easy to predict. This frustrates the prince. He lands several blows on him. As he's beaten, the spring prince recalls his past with sadness. His mother said he was incompetent. Because of that woman, everything went wrong. Because of her son, who can't do anything right, everything went wrong. Now we're back to the present. Cheon Yeo Woon watches as the prince cries. He tries to attack him again. However, he's counterattacked, his head brought to the ground. The result of the battle is the complete defeat of the spring prince. All that's left for him is to stay on the ground, crying and bitter about his defeat. Cheon Yeo Woon says you reap what you sow. The prince's allies wonder, is that the same person they said was the weakest? Cheon Yeo Woon asks if they also want to get beaten up. Fearfully, they say no. Museum questions why he didn't finish the job. Cheon Yeo Woon affirms that if the next test wasn't a group one, he would have cracked his skull right there. The prince yells for him to do it. Then, don't be a coward. However, ignoring him, Cheon Yeo Woon leaves. The prince stays behind, only to savor his defeat. As he returns, the protagonist says his lack of combat experience is a problem. Stopping near a river, he asks if the nano machine has more functions he can use. It replies that so far, he has used only 3 out of the 100 functions that exist. Surprised, as he doesn't know the existing functions, he asks the nano to transfer all the knowledge about the functions to his brain. After the shock of knowledge flooding his mind, he feels great, searching his mind for the various functions that exist. The augmented reality function can help. With this, he's able to simulate, in his visual field, a hologram of his opponent. The nano can stimulate in his vision the opponent's movements, so he can simulate realistic combat. The simulations are so good that even the prince's arrogance is in the hologram, and that's good. The protagonist's anger increases, hearing the hologram's word. They engage in combat. Cheon Yeo Woon can't hit the hologram, but the hologram can hit, and the nano machine simulates the impact on him, even the pain. So, after several hours of training, he's exhausted on the ground. Despite feeling a lot of pain, he was able to train even more. No pain can stop him from advancing in his training and changing his destiny. When he finally returns to the dormitory, everyone looks at him suspiciously. Did they know he beat the current dorm leader? Hyobang, the one who tried an ambush from the infirmary and now is bald, was the first to talk to Cheon Yeo Woon, saying his bed is over there. Of all the people in the dormitory, he was the only one to talk to him. So, the protagonist wonders why he changed his attitude. What does he want with this? Hyobang kneels and says he will bet everything on him. Cadet 23 says he wants to follow Prince Cheon Yeo Woon and for him to be his new master. Everyone around wonders if that's a vote of loyalty? Due to what happened before, Cheon Yeo Woon doubts his honesty. However, he insists he regrets his actions. In front of everyone, Hyobang asks him to accept him as a servant to redeem himself. With sincerity, he was betting everything on the 7th prince, as he was abandoned by all the others. After observing for a while, Cheon Yeo Woon says he accepts him like that. This response left him amazed. The bald one was even willing to kiss his feet. All of this happened in front of Prince Mujiem. Mujiem, who was his master until then. The prince's servant says he's an insect to do this. Yeobang tries not to show that he's scared, but he's very afraid of them. Watching this happen, the protagonist asks why they're calling his servant an insect, when, in fact, the insect here is you. The boy gets angry. Protagonist asks if he said something. Because of this humiliation, he attacks Cheon Yeo Woon without thinking of anything else. His blows are predictable. He just dodges and hits his neck. He fell unconscious. Compared to his hologram characters, this is nothing. In front of his new servant, the bald one thinks he made the right choice. Cheon Yeo Woon asks if the prince wants to try his luck again. He just ignores and says that nothing changed because he only has one servant. Mujiem avoided the fight, and the other students notice, and they begin to wonder if maybe that person will bring changes to the academy. A week had passed. On the training field, the instructor shouts that he has taught everything he could to the students. Now, they must be responsible for themselves. The groups that will face each other in the academy's second test will be drawn now. Each key will have 4 groups. The battles will be group against group. The academy director called the leaders to draw. He noticed that some of the leaders had already changed. The groups that will face each other are drawn. Group 1 is everyone's favorite to win. When it was Group 8's turn, he realized that Cheon Yeo Woon was the new group leader. His sister, who just found out now, thinks Mujiem is an idiot. She warned him several times to be careful. After the afternoon training, the Spring Clan Prince went to the mountains to train alone. However, he is surprised by his sister. Unlike wanting to know why she's here, he ignores her and leaves. The girl insists on talking to him, so Mujiem asks why she wants it so much. She says that after gracing him with her presence, he can't ignore her. She thought a lot before coming here to talk to him. However, frustrated, the prince doesn't want to know anything else. She loses patience and goes straight to the point. She shows her arm and says she got hurt. The reason for this is that last night, while training, she was ambushed. She doesn't know who did it because they were masked. This really worried her. Mujiem asserts that this happened because she was careless. Irritated, the sister says that's not how it happened. The girl explains that the academy informed the group leaders in advance against which team they would fight, as they expect the other teams to attack the leaders of rival groups. Without the leader to command a team, the group has no chance of winning. After talking, the girl gets impatient and says she doesn't want to hear that one of the heirs was expelled before taking the second test, so he must be more careful. The girl leaves, and Mujiem says it's strange. The weakest among the princes warns him. However, behind him, something was hiding in the trees, someone thirsty for blood. Hours had passed. It was already late when Cheon Yeo Woon finished his simulated battles hidden in the forest. After thinking about his progress, he decided to return to the dormitory, but on the way, he noticed something strange. The sound of a fight near where he is. When he's sure of the direction, he goes to check. It didn't take long for him to find a person lying on the ground and Prince Mujiem in combat with the ninja. The blade already had blood from its victim. In combat, the Spring Clan Prince was struggling to stay alive against the blade attack. He twisted his leg in combat. The situation, which was already critical, was now inevitable. The last attack would be fatal. However, Cheon Yeo Woon goes to him and forces the ninja to defend himself. Cheon Yeo Woon manages to hit his stomach by a hair. Now that he's been discovered and the opponent is strong, the ninja fled. Cheon Yeo Woon asks if the prince didn't die.
I don't feel so good.
After some time, they returned to their dormitory. He even carried the wounded. His new servant asks if his master is okay. He says yes, he's not hurt, just tired. One of the cadets says the prince is bleeding a lot, and that's dangerous. After a while, one of the instructors goes to the dormitory to help. Worried, the instructor says there's a problem. The Spring Prince won't be able to walk normally for some time. That's the worst possible thing. How will the group be able to fight without its leader? The instructor faints Mujiem and says he will take him to the infirmary. The protagonist, worried, remembers that there is another injured person, but the instructor ignores him. Still, Cheon Yeo Woon carries the other wounded, saying that Cadet 4 is also in trouble. The instructor asserts that Cheon Yeo Woon did very well. He purposely left one behind so that someone would come after him alone. The instructor says that from now on he can take both, and then warns him not to go out tonight, as it's dangerous. The test is tomorrow. He also says that he must learn to fight with what he has. With that, the protagonist understands that his team is understaffed, but that's part of the test. Surely this also happened to the other groups. Thinking about it, he sees ants on the ground and how they fight in groups, attacking the leaders of other colonies. Now, everything makes sense in his mind. In the demonic celestial cult, one should not be bound by rules. Returning to the dormitory, the students are panicked because losing their leader means it's over for them. They'll all be expelled. Cheon Yeo Woon says they must think about electing a new leader and come up with a plan. Before he could say anything else, Yeobang suggests that his master be the new leader of the group. He argues to everyone that this is the only solution. If he was powerful enough to defeat Prince Museum, he's the best choice. Timidly, everyone raises their hand and agrees that this is the only alternative. So, they all agreed Cheon Yeo Woon, who was despised until today, will lead Group 8. Important decisions were made that night. However, precisely at midnight, the protagonist awakened and, using the nano machines for night vision, he went to the dormitory of Team 7. Upon confirming that everyone was asleep, he stealthily struck the energy points of all the cadets. The last one he struck with excessive force. With everyone unconscious, he now used muscle acupuncture and sealed all their meridians. This way, they wouldn't be able to use Nigong energy. The protagonist whispered to them not to hold resentment. It wasn't personal. Before leaving the team's dormitory, he realized that one person was missing, so perhaps it was from here that the suspicious person who attacked the Spring Clan Prince came. The next day, the new leader of Team 8, Cheon Yeo Woon, went to participate in the drawing for the test. The Guardian, upon noticing this change, was pleased. To him, it meant that the cadets understood the true meaning of this test. After everyone was ready, he told them to show worthy victories and that he was looking forward to seeing them. As they returned to their positions, the protagonist noticed that that person had a familiar look. Those eyes he had seen before. He asked the Nano to analyze his body structure, and after a few seconds, she confirmed that it was 100% compatible with the person from that night. Officially, the team duels for the second academy test would begin. In the first round, Team 1 would face Team 3. The Guardian shouted for them to be ready, and then the troops engaged in combat. Team 1, led by the Dark Clan Prince, gave a flawless performance, using a diagonal formation. With the prince's leadership, they were winning the battle. In the end, the members of Team 3 were completely subdued. The leader of Team 3 surrendered. The Guardian admitted that it's not like he was weak, but against that person, he wouldn't stand a chance. In the second round of the day, Team 4 faced Team 2, and Team 4 emerged victorious. The third clash would be the duel of our protagonist's team. His soldiers were afraid and lacked confidence in the training they had received. The protagonist looked at them and said that if they were nervous, it was normal. He was too, but if they didn't win today, they would be expelled from the academy. Their future depended on it. So they should have anger, not fear, courage, and determination to improve their future. Motivated by these words, his team was now completely focused. How he encouraged the cadets caught the Guardian's attention. Those eyes weren't those of a loser. His opponent would be Team 5, led by the daughter of the Sound Clan. She was frustrated because she wanted to have a match against the Spring Clan Prince. But the idiot lost his position, and now she'll have to face this bastard. The princess ordered everyone to attack. The protagonist then ordered them to wait. She formed an arrowhead formation, and Cheon Yeo organized the formation in layers. The Guardian, observing the combat and the team's decisions, said that this defensive form only makes sense if the front leader is strong. When their princes entered combat and exchanged the first blow, the princess was surprised as the powerless boy defended against her attack. She was extremely powerful, and everyone believed the protagonist was weak, so his defense drew everyone's attention. The protagonist knew he didn't have as much energy as she did, but he smiled in this situation. He managed to defend against all her blows, so, one by one, she wouldn't be able to win. The protagonist ordered them to change position. The formation he ordered, she thought would be foolish for them to make. She said he was a terrible leader, as she expected. The protagonist prepared a line formation, so she would force the destruction of these lines with a spear formation. When they were face to face, he changed the formation to a pincer formation. The girl quickly ordered them to defend against this attack, but before it was completed, the protagonist now ordered them to change to the arrow formation position. She couldn't predict any of the moves he made, so after the movements, they were face to face, but all her troops were cornered. The number of positions he shouted were just tricks. Hearing the positions, she thought she knew what would happen, but in fact, it was a bait. When the order was given to attack, everyone was afraid. The soldiers, in fear, dropped their weapons and gave up. The girls shouted that they were fools for dropping their weapons. The feeling of defeat took over her body, and memories began to flood her mind. She had a feeling that everyone would laugh at her for failing, and it would be against the worst of all. She couldn't accept that, and then flew into a rage. She advanced alone against the leader of Team 8. The protagonist dropped his shield for a sword battle. The girl sustained injuries, as did he, but her skill was surpassed by the brother she hates. Cheon Yeo Woon executed the butterfly strike and defeated his sister. To the absolute surprise of everyone present, even the Guardian, the result was unexpected. The girl only saw that her arm was no longer attached to her body. The protagonist was superior, as she understood the result of the battle and when what happened, the pain reached her, and along with it, a feeling of terror. The screams spread throughout the school. The instructors went to help the defeated while the victorious one observed on the blade. This is his first revenge, and as expected, it is stained with red. Furthermore, he was apprehensive because he executed the movement perfectly as he learned, but his movement wasn't as complete as he expected, so there is a limit even when you already know the moves. Team 8 was declared the winner. The Great Guardian, realizing that this was the butterfly blade technique, was pleased and surprised, wondering how that drunkard managed to teach that to this boy. He thinks that in these last 21 days he has grown in every aspect. He used a high-level technique and managed to cut the princess's arm. It's as if he were a genius sent from the heavens. The Guardian should have insisted on making him his disciple that time. Now the glory of teaching this person will fall upon his drunken rival. From now on, the boy will conquer the heavens. The next fight would be held by Team 7. Its members were not well. The group's leader was angry because the fight he had with the protagonist before hurt him. And somehow, he found out who sabotaged his team and was now looking at him mockingly because he was deceived. In combat, Team 7 wouldn't stand a chance, as all the members had their meridian flow blocked. Defeat was certain. However, the group leader organized the arrowhead formation, and the rival team leader was surprised. The attack was so fierce that it ripped the darkness from his hands and pierced his chest. The scene was frightening, but it motivated his team, which was weak. Even with their energy flows blocked, they could rely on their physical strength and attack. In the end, even though they were without energy, they managed to defeat all the members of the rival team and emerge victorious, an achievement based on strength and hatred. Then the leader of Team 7 tells our protagonist that he will be next. And indeed, this went beyond what he expected, so Cheon Yeo Woon says this guy is annoying. The battle between Teams 7 and 6, Team 7 emerged victorious. All the battles were conducted, so in the director's room, they were analyzing the results. He receives a list of all those who failed in detail. They discuss that because the battles are in groups, if the members of the main families who lost feel offended, they train their representatives and were hindered by the lack of skill of other weak families. Regarding this, the Great Guardian says it's a pity, but they still grew their families well, and nothing can be done. Now, the winners must be taken to the library and receive their medicinal sphere. Everyone was eager to have access to the great knowledge library. The protagonist himself never thought he would set foot in this place, the library that contains books on all martial arts techniques in the cult. The cadets had already accessed the first floor while he was in the infirmary. Today, everyone would have access to the second floor, but the protagonist would have to visit the first and second floors at the same time. He remembers his master telling him not to waste his time in the library and focus only on mastering the butterfly technique. Furthermore, the butterfly technique he is learning is found on the 4th and 5th floors of the library, but he is learning it earlier thanks to his master. Since he wouldn't have time, they wouldn't be able to take advantage of the benefits of the 1st and 2nd floors, but he shouldn't feel sad about it. His master tried to comfort him, but the protagonist was actually confident. No one knows he has an unimaginable secret. It was the first time he saw so many books together, and he could only stay in the library for 2 hours, so he would have to make the most of his time. As he flipped through the pages of the books, he asked the Nano to analyze everything that was written. In 1 hour, he managed to scan a total of 55 books. Walking further into the library, he reached a place where a guard was sleeping next to a monolith. Was this a tomb? The guard responds that this is a tomb left by the ancestral celestial demon founder. This answer caught our protagonist's attention. The man tells him that this was carved in sapphire, which is an almost indestructible stone, but when he looks more closely, Cheon Yeo Woon discovers that this was carved with fingers. The guard comments that people are so focused on the books that they never noticed that this was here and showed no curiosity. He protected this place for over 20 years, and no one ever paid attention to this grave. This includes all the descendants of the celestial family. Looking at the back of this monolith, the protagonist notices something strange. There are blade marks carved into the stone. He asks the Nano to analyze these cuts, and after a complete analysis, she discovers traces of a sword blade intertwined. These marks were made by 2 different weapons, by 2 different people. But why would this be here like this? He uses an augmented reality of the Nano machine and realizes that there is a difference between the marks. It was as if the second person had done it later and tried to hide the original first marks. Anxiously, the protagonist wonders if he could use the Nano to separate the original marks from the marks that were made later. After a complete analysis and using a simulation, he is surprised. Yes, it is possible to separate the sword strikes. These marks are not normal. It is a sword movement with formations unknown to everything the Nano knows. Just by looking, he couldn't tell what kind of movement this was, so he asks Nano to analyze the movements of the marks and replicate them in an augmented reality simulation. It is possible, but first, they have to check the sapphire's resistance to measure the user's strength. At that moment, the guard questions why he isn't going to read books. He's wasting time here. The protagonist then asks if he saw the marks behind as well. He says yes and finds it very sad. Rumors say that the ancestor left the sword technique of his epiphany here. Whoever did this on top to desecrate is a coward. Cheon Yeo wonders if maybe they did this to try to get the ancestor's epiphany. In other words, there is doubt whether this was just vandalism or has a meaning behind it. Finally, the guard lets the student do as he pleases. He won't interfere. Nano informs that the stone's resistance can be measured by putting his hand on the stone. As he begins the analysis, Nano compares the stone's resistance to diamond. Diamond's resistance is 10, and this sapphire is equal to 7. This is extremely resilient, so the protagonist wonders who would be capable of making these marks on the stone using their fingers. Using augmented reality, Nano simulates a dummy in Cheon Yeo Woon's vision. The martial artist prepares and executes the strikes that would leave these marks. Seeing this leaves him astonished. All the marks were left with just one continuous movement of the same technique. The butterfly technique he previously learned from his master, even when mastered, doesn't compare to this. Then, he quickly asks her to transfer the knowledge of these movements to his brain. Now, thinking about it, he doesn't even know who this person is, but he has just received the best gift that could exist. Through this stone, he gained knowledge of incomparable movements. But before leaving, he hadn't thought about the other technique that was on the stone. Curious about this, he asks Nano to simulate the movements of the other person now. When these movements are executed, they are even more devastating. The protagonist was shocked by this information, and he asked Nano to simulate the battle between these two people, technique against technique. After she does this, the holograms engage in combat. The simulation was incredible, and in the end, the first movement that he thought was perfect was nullified in an incomparable way. If he thought that the first person was a genius and the pinnacle of the world, the second person surpassed them. After that, the protagonist went to ask the instructor if there are other tombs like this on other floors of the library. He only worked here his whole life and didn't see the other floors, but he heard that there are others on each floor. On the second floor of the academy library, students were poring over books trying to learn as much as they could. Everyone was focused on reading techniques of new movements and breaths. Among the people, the protagonist noticed that his sword clan brother was also there studying. Of all the heirs, he was the only one interested. None of them came to the library because they thought the content of this place was insignificant. He put that aside and went to get what he was most interested in. The monolith was also on the second floor of the library, and as he thought, there were also engraved marks on the stone behind it. Nano makes the same analysis as she did on the first floor. The techniques recorded in the stone are incredible. The first mark was made with 24 formations of movements from a single technique. The second mark was made with 56 sword movements from a single technique to nullify the first. Nano copied these movements to his armament. The protagonist wanted to test these movements here right away, but there were many people around, so he would have to restrain his eagerness. The other people in the library were annoyed by someone flipping through books quickly and making a lot of noise. By doing this, they were sure that the person wasn't valuing the content, just flipping through the pages very quickly. This bothered everyone around. The protagonist didn't care. With the nano machine, he could analyze all the books in seconds. He caught everyone's attention, including his brothers. Cheon Yeo was curious about what he was doing too. For him, it was also clear that his brother didn't know what he was doing, but it was still curious to see him flipping through the books non-stop. During this time, the protagonist scanned a total of 156 books. After doing this, he asked to analyze all the books that saved the data and weight in his program. Something he realized now is that, no matter how powerful the technique is, for example, the butterfly technique that is among the top 10 martial arts of the cult, it requires experience practicing it thousands of times to achieve mastery. So, he is eager to gain experience in real combat to train. When her shift ends, the protagonist informs that he is leaving. The instructor then informs that someone asked about the time the protagonist would leave the library. So, there is someone waiting for him, but he doesn't pay attention to it. To his surprise, maybe that person just appeared in front of him. He wants to know why someone invaded his dormitory and sabotaged his comrades. With deadly hatred, he wants to confirm if it was him and get an explanation about it. But Cheon Yeo Woon says he is too busy now, and also questions why he left his subordinates alone. It was clear that someone stronger would appear. The boy ignores this provocation and says that now he is there to do the same to him. The protagonist realizes that, unlike a certain someone, he doesn't react to provocations. They were going to fight each other, but before this fight started, someone was behind observing, and when the two were ready to start, his sword clan brother stood between them. This leaves both of them irritated and surprised by this move. His name is Cheon Yeo from the Blade clan. He approaches friendly, saying they were very focused and then didn't notice his presence. He's interrupting this fight because he really needs to talk to his younger brother, so he needs to set aside this skirmish for later. He was being polite, however, this was humiliating, and the boy doesn't give up. He must wait for his brother to be beaten first. His matter is more important. Yu-chan says he tried to be polite and it didn't work out, so now he doesn't know what to do to make him obey. The leader of Team 8 becomes furious and tries to attack the prince of the Sword clan and misses. With just his hands, he is completely nullified, and his life could have been taken with a simple hand movement. In this humiliating way, he questions if the boy is already convinced that he should leave. The protagonist is surprised at how the skills he saw now don't compare to the prince of the Spring clan and the armless princess. They are more advanced. This person didn't even stand a chance against the prince. Yu-chan asks if he has any injuries, perhaps a broken rib, as his movements are limited. The cadet from Team 8 confirms that this prince is on another level from anyone else. He has no chance against him now. He got the message. The prince warns that he can leave now. Humiliated, he simply walks away. When they finally are alone, his brother talks about his true objective. He's there to talk to his brother and not to fight. The protagonist enters combat mode, and Yu-chan stops him and tells him to wait. He's not there to fight. This is the first encounter between the brothers, so he greets politely and says it's a pleasure to meet him. Being called brother is the first time. This is not how they've been acting for years. This kind of attitude leaves him filled with hatred. It's clearly mocking, and the brother acknowledges that him being irritated is quite normal, as he's been rejected by all the clans since then. The protagonist, now furious, asks if he expects him to be nice to him because he was polite. Yu-chan then gets straight to the point. He realized that both of them are on the path of the sword and saw how he used his skill against the sister from the Sound clan. Yu-chan became a passionate fan of his. These affectionate words irritate the protagonist, and he asks him to state his intentions quickly. There's no tension between them, so Yu-chan decides there's no other way and states his goal. He wants him to work for the Blade clan. The protagonist, of course, is surprised to hear this, perhaps irritated. He asks if his brother is serious. His brother responds affirmatively, saying he doesn't know about the other brothers, but he's sure the protagonist shouldn't be his enemy. Our hero questions if what he's asking is for Cheon Yeo Woon to give up being the heir. Yu-chan smiles and says that implies this situation, but anyway, it's not as if he has a chance, so serving the future heir of the cult would be the best option for him. Besides, the older brother has become a passionate fan of the sword techniques of his sixth brother and would provide him with many benefits. His brother didn't expect him to refuse, as it should be obvious he had no chance. However, his sixth brother was saying he would never give up his path, and anyone who got in his way would be defeated. This means that the conflict between them will only be resolved on the battlefield. The older brother is filled with hatred because his brother is insinuating that he has a chance against him, which is obvious to everyone that he doesn't. The protagonist noticed the buildup of energy in his hand. Surely, his brother was planning to attack. When he noticed the micro movements in his fingers, he prepared to defend. This accelerated reaction caught his brother's attention, who began to laugh incessantly. He said that's how it is. There's nothing to be done. They will meet again on the battlefield. Although he tears through the air to demonstrate his ability, it's just physical manifestation. Blade energy is a type of skill he will never be able to achieve. This made him aware of the difference in powers between them. This line divides the power of a genius and a failure. So, now that he has shown the difference, he said he'll leave and says he's looking forward to their meeting on the battlefield. The protagonist thought he was on the same level as his brothers since he defeated the Spring clan, but when he realized that, he was naive. The difference between the other brothers is still like heaven and earth. As he walked back to his dormitory, the brother from the Blade clan was thoughtful. In that second, he intended to cut off his sixth brother's arm and leave him useless. But contrary to all expectations, he managed to anticipate his intention. With that, he is certain if he is his brother, it's not normal. That same night, the protagonist heads to the individual training room of the academy. Here, normal students can train in isolation. It's quite large, so there's not much to do, but at least here, he won't be bothered and will be able to see all the simulations from the Nano machine. She projects the dummies that will perform the movements of the techniques he saw in the library. This simulation of the technique from the second floor, which he hadn't put into practice yet, is even more incredible than on the first floor. So the movements that nullify the first movement are even more monstrous. It's so insane that he shudders. He thinks only a madman could train his whole life to master these movements. He does dozens of simulations and dozens of fights between the dummies. He simulates the butterfly sword technique against the techniques from the monolith. Doing this mental simulation of the movements made his internal energy increase tremendously. Feeling this result, he lost focus on mental training. His Nigong was much more powerful. His internal energy increased by 10 years in cultivation. With this new margin of of energy, he feels that now he is capable of performing this new technique. When he consumes the medicinal ball, which was the prize from the second test, he will be able to increase his internal energy by another 20 years. Since he has little time to train, he decides to train and increase his energy. With this, he has the Nano transfer knowledge of these movements to his brain, so he has the knowledge without being able to increase his energy. However, this process will take 10 hours to complete. Now he returns to his dormitory. Things are normal there. The first person he greets is his most faithful servant, the bald one. He notices that his hands hold some sheets of paper. He's studying something he learned in the library. The most common thing to do is to try to write down everything he memorized in the 2 hours they had access to the library. Seeing that he's giving his all, he feels proud. The next day, he returns to the individual training room. He goes into hibernation mode, and after concluding the transformation of his body to adapt to the new techniques he transferred to his brain, one of the side effects is to dirty the floor of the room with last night's dinner. This is quite disgusting and tiresome. However, now he thinks about the benefits. The strength he can put into his hand is much greater than before. His whole body is more resistant, muscular. Look at how many muscles on his belly he gained. The next step is to test how strong he is now. He channels all his strength to strike the wall, focusing on his breathing. He prepares to attack in the room next door. Someone was calmly cultivating, just like him, their energy red, perhaps representing anger. This anger at being humiliated the day before. Before he seeks to compare himself to that prince, the boy needs to make sure to destroy the failed 6th prince. While he was focused, he didn't realize that the wall next to him had turned into an ass. In the next moment, the wall shatters on top of the poor guy who was training there peacefully. The instructors look up in shock and see a curtain of smoke generated by the explosion. The other cadet who was hit by the stones starts to think that there might be an assassin after him, and a silhouette begins to appear in the hole formed by the blow. He concentrates a bit more to realize that actually, this supposed assassin who wanted to kill him is actually Cheon Yeo Woon. He praises the protagonist's mother with various compliments, and faints due to the hit he took. In the training hall corridors, the instructors can be heard scolding the MC heavily. As he carries Cadet 108, the instructor tells the protagonist that he was lucky the cadet didn't die. Otherwise, he would be expelled. He also says he will put this in a report, while the protagonist apologizes. He is also banned from using the training rooms on the 1st and 2nd floors, and will have to use the basement rooms. As he leaves, the instructor comments that to break a stone wall like that means his internal energy has exceeded the limits. Even the MC asks Nano why he became so strong. He didn't think he could break that wall. Nano explains that it's because his muscles have reached their maximum potential. Now he can leave marks even on Sapphire, just with physical strength. The protagonist worriedly asks if his power has reached its limit, and Nano says yes. But that's for now. As he grows more, the limits will also increase proportionally. A little later in the training hall in the basement, he is a bit nervous even though he has decades of knowledge. It will be the first time he trains the absolute technique. He uses the absolute sword technique's first move, but immediately realizes something is wrong, so he uses it again. With many doubts, he wonders why it feels so wrong. Then he uses another sword technique, Destructive Formation 45, and this one seems just right. Then he recalls why the absolute technique didn't work, since in the video he saw it was a harmonious movement, but when he did it, it was awful. So he asks Nano to make a virtual reality comparison of the movements he made with what he saw in the video. Then he watches the movements and analyzes both to see where he went wrong. Even after analyzing, he still doesn't understand why he can't get it right. He sits on the floor, angry for not understanding, until, thinking about the correct flow, he has an idea of what might be wrong. Even to use the butterfly dance formation, the correct energy flow was necessary. Now he feels like an idiot for omitting the flow and trying just the sword movement. After a while thinking about everything, he asks Nano to show the front of the stone on the 1st floor of the library. Nano materializes the stone in front of him in augmented reality. He wonders if there's a clue in that bunch of writing on the stone. According to Nano, it's a poem written by Liu Bang and an axe from the Han Dynasty. Cheon Yeo Woon is surprised. So this poem wasn't written by the ancestral demon? He asks Nano if any word has been changed. She says no word was altered. So he changes his strategy and asks to analyze the stone's surface for clues. And after the analysis, Nano says she found small holes under each character. He confirms with a zoom that there are indeed holes and each character has a different number of holes. He tries to understand what these points mean. 4 points here could mean 4 pressure points. He recalls that the first book he read with Nano's help was about pressure points, and that in the book, each point had a number and a note. He finds it strange because the 4th point is in the chest, and it should start at the dantian, which is in the stomach, but there would be 7 points. Then he has a brilliant idea. The character 4, Big, has 3 points, and if you add 4, there are 7. So he does this with all the other characters, until he reaches the 23rd character. He discovers the hidden flow. The instructors only hear the echo of his laughter as he shouts that he's a genius. The next morning in the academy courtyard, the protagonist is already thinking about going to the basement to try the absolute technique now that he knows the correct flow. He turns around when called by someone. The colleague introduces himself as Yumpa, cadet number 200, and asks if he accepts the challenge of a duel. The MC says there's nothing to gain from this, and since it's not a test, he doesn't want to waste time dueling with strangers. Then the cadet apologizes for being selfish, and says that if the protagonist beats him, he'll give information about the 3rd test. In the forest area, the two are preparing to start the duel. The protagonist asks why he's doing this. The cadet says it's to check the qualifications. The protagonist doesn't quite understand what he meant. The guy says that the technique may not be that impressive, but it is the pride of the lunar energy of the Blade clan. Confident, the protagonist invites him to the fight. Then Yumpa lunges at the MC, who easily dodges the first attack. Yumpa tries again and misses, no matter how much he keeps attacking. To Cheon Yeo Woon, the guy is too slow. Then it's his turn to attack. He hits the guy in the stomach, attacking from below and sending Yumpa into the air. The impact of the blow makes him vomit. Then he falls to the ground unconscious. At that moment, the MC realizes that he used too much force and may have overdone it. On the ground, Yumpa didn't think he would lose so easily after seeing the MC's fight against Cheon Woon Ryo. Maybe Cheon Yeo Woon was hiding his abilities. The guy says this was expected from someone of celestial lineage. He had thought the MC only had advanced martial skills and, as promised, he will give him the information. Cheon Yeo Woon wants to know why the duel, since the opponent wouldn't gain anything from it. The guy says that just as he expected, the MC doesn't trust him. As he said before, he just wanted to check the qualifications, not only the protagonist's but also his own for the 3rd test. Cheon Yeo Woon wants to know what this has to do with the 3rd test. The guy explains that there is a high chance the test will be in groups, but the MC questions that the academy had said there would be no more group tests. It seems that even in a group, this test will value individual strength, aiming to select high-ranking warriors. Only advanced martial artists and at least 30 years of internal energy can become high-ranking warriors. According to Cheon Yeo Woon, only 20% of the cadets from the 2nd test are advanced, so to make up for the lack of energy, they will have to obtain a medicinal pellet. The guy agrees. As soon as the pellets are distributed, many cadets will reach this level, and there's the problem, which is the advanced martial art. On the 2nd floor of the library, there were only intermediate arts books, so many will fail. Thus in the test, they must earn a secret advanced arts book. But it seems that's not all. The guy agrees it would be easy if that were all. About 80% of the cadets would pass. According to his father, the book should have the 7 demon sword techniques, a part of the formations that high-ranking warriors use. Cheon Yeo Woon asks about these demon sword formations, remembering hearing about them. His servant told him they were created by the greatest swordsmen of the time, the sword demons, an art created to combat the 18th and 108th formation of Sorum disciples, but among them, the 7 techniques stood out. Depending on the number of people using the technique together, they become a specific formation. The MC thinks that an advanced artist can defeat the 12th and 36th formation, but only a grandmaster can defeat the 108th formation. Yumpa says his father formed a group of 12 people to learn the 7 techniques. The principle behind the demon sword formation is this: mastering techniques is not enough, since making the formation is quite difficult. The MC asks if this is the reason reason for wanting to test him in a duel, and it was exactly for that reason he couldn't judge just by the technique. He wanted to confirm Cheon Yeo Woon's abilities to see if he would invite him to the test, and the MC asks about the invitation. Then the guy remembers to say that they expect the cadets to lead the third test from learning the arts. He heard that the leaders were decided by the results of the second test. Cheon Yeo Woon inquires if the leaders will choose the members. According to Yumpa, yes, but the cadet can refuse. He supposes the third test is more for the 6 main clans and young masters than for ordinary cadets. In other words, it's another part of the air battle, who will be disqualified if they don't gather men and master formation techniques. Even if cadets can refuse a group, they usually depend on the leaders to pass the test. That's why Yumpa invited him. The guy says this is just the beginning. It's normal to want a skilled leader for the test. Then he says that the reward Cheon Yeo Woon will get is himself, not that the MC had asked for it. He asks if it's possible that he won't be chosen as a leader, but Yumpa is confident that he will be. Realizing that the guy has enough ability to be a leader, something is off, so he decides to use that. Asking why he was chosen if there are other heirs and leaders who passed the second test. Thus, Yumpa reveals that he has already been rejected by the young masters of the Black and Sword clans, which means the MC was his last option. To help, the guy says they both share the path of the sword. Cheon Yeo Woon inquires if that's really the case. The cadet makes it clear that he's not asking to be his subordinate. He just wants help to pass the third test. With all humility, he asks Cheon Yeo Woon to accept him. Thus, the MC smiles at the guy, making him excited to get help. As soon as he kneels to thank him, the MC says he refuses. The guy looks at him shocked, but without any mercy, the protagonist remains firm in rejecting him. A little later, we see Cheon Yeo Woon running through the forest. He asks Nano for the results of the facial analysis. Even if not detecting lies, perfectly activated it when he found something strange. There was a 45% chance that Yumpa was lying when he said the other young masters had already formed groups. The chance increased to 62% when he said he was just asking for help to pass the third test. The MC was keeping a safe distance from him, and remembers the guy smiling when he said they both were on the path of the sword. He must think the MC is an idiot to say he went to the Black clan and the Sword clan, without mentioning the Blade clan. We see Yumpa talking to another guy about the MC's refusal. Cheon Yu-chan starts laughing while Yumpa is still talking about the refusal. He thinks the MC must be interesting, certain that Cheon Yeo Woon would not fall for that lie. Yumpa says their plan failed, but according to his leader, there's nothing to be done. It would have been good if they could have gotten Yumpa to leave the group and disqualify him on the day of the test. If he weren't a rival in the battle, he would want to recruit him. His servant falls to his knees, asking for another chance. He still has other plans he can use, but Cheon Yu-chan says there's no need. It's better he finds a group while he can, or even becomes the leader of one. Yumpa is taken aback upon hearing this. He thought he would stay in the master's group, but the prince says he has other guys to choose from. Before leaving, he calls for Yuma, who is still kneeling, saying he has no use for someone useless like him, a trash, completely shocking the cadet, who leaves wiping away tears after being discarded. Cheon Yu-chan didn't remember the MC being so strong. It left him perplexed, but only time will tell if it's really skill or luck. We see the closed training room. The MC is thinking about getting 11 prodigies. Even if the academy hasn't said anything yet, it could be true. He has a few in mind from Group 8, but there's no guarantee they will follow him. For now, it's better to train and think about it later. He asks if Nano finished scanning the library books and over 100 martial arts books were analyzed. The MC wants Nano to create a hologram of a specific person that was analyzed and then make him fight. As Nano says he can do it, we gradually see the hologram of someone forming. As soon as it takes shape, the hologram of Cheon Mukium calls him a plebeian, telling the MC to come to him to face him. He continues to be irritating while moving in for the attack. As he curves his sword to hit Cheon Yeo Woon, the MC easily dodges him, then prepares his own attack, moving very quickly and hitting the Spring Clan Prince on the neck. The attack makes his neck twist, and Nano informs that the character died due to a neck fracture. Cheon Yeo Woon is surprised, as 4 days ago the attack could only push his opponent. He wonders if he surpassed Cheon Mukium with the realization this was not what he was planning. But then he thinks a little, and asks Nano to create 10 characters, each with a different type of intermediate martial art. Nano uses the same model for the characters who use the final Emperor's Fist, Fallen Sword, among other arts. Looking at them, them, the MC thinks he may have gone too far with 10 characters. Each of them is as annoying as the original, calling him an arrogant plebeian, a cursed bastard. Irritated by their attitude, Cheon Yeo Woon is now eager for combat. Then they all rush at the MC at once, thinking he will be attacked simultaneously. He delivers several very quick strikes to each of them, causing some holograms to disappear. The MC managed to block the first wave of attacks, but he has to retreat before being hit by multiple swords. But he jumps too high and ends up hitting his head on the ceiling of the room, then falls to the ground, and Nano informs that augmented reality will be temporarily suspended. The MC recovers from the blow he took from himself. With the augmented reality, he forgot how small the place is. Cheon Yeo Woon takes another look at the ceiling, specifically at the part he managed to crack with his head. He brings an instructor to analyze what he did, and the guy doesn't like it at all, as the MC keeps causing problems for him. Angry, the guy bans the protagonist from the training room, even with him apologizing. Then the instructor leaves the room and asks Cheon Yeo Woon to follow him. They cross a deserted gate, arriving at a building half the size of the training facility, but with a much thicker door. The instructor explains that the MC should train there from now on, since he will only break the walls again if he uses the training room. The MC asks what place that is. The instructor explains that this room is available to those who reach the specialist level after the 4th test. Cheon Yeo Woon turns around, not understanding. Since he caused problems again, they made this place available early with the Academy's approval. To have broken the walls of the other training room, the MC must have at least the energy of a specialist. These walls are much more resistant, so they shouldn't break. Cheon Yeo Woon thanks the instructor, who tells him not to worry and to focus on training. With the larger room, the MC shouldn't have any problems using augmented reality. Before starting, he reflects on whether to continue facing the 10 characters, but thinks of something, asking Nano if it would be possible to fight against Siabming, which would be possible if he only used the moves of the butterfly dance. Even with just one move, it would be better than facing Cheon Yukiam. Nano uses the model of Professor Siabming himself to use the butterfly dance technique. Although he's just a character, it's much more tense to have him in front of you. The character says that the recruit decided to fight the professor himself. Therefore, Cheon Yeo Woon tells Nano to mute him next time. His professor is in the top 10 martial artists of the demonic clan. Since he's not a match in proficiency, he has to aim for his weaknesses in a preemptive attack. Even so, his attack is easily blocked. Cheon Yeo Woon didn't expect it to be so ineffective. Then he's hit by his professor's drunken fist, which hits his jaw, nearly knocking him unconscious. He's thrown into the air with another attack, and falls to the ground, unable to move, about to be hit again, smiling at his student. He uses the 3rd technique of the butterfly dance, the 7 butterfly dances, throwing Cheon Yeo Woon against the wall. The MC knew he wasn't a match, but didn't think he'd be taken down with the 1st technique, realizing that these are the skills of one of the top martial artists of the demonic cult. So Nano asks if he wants to change the character's martial art, but the MC refuses. Thus, the combat is restarted. This time, Cheon Yeo Woon wants to test the ultimate technique and positions himself for combat. His teacher advances, asking if he really thinks he's ready. The MC analyzes him, ready to use the ultimate technique against him. He manages to dodge the attacks, surprising his master. Then it's Cheon Yeo Woon's turn to use the technique. Even though he dodges the first time, he still manages to hit the drunk teacher's chest. Tired, he realizes that the technique is working. Now it's time to deliver the final blow, almost hitting the middle of the drunk teacher's forehead with the tips of his fingers. But the hologram dodges and hits him in the stomach. He is thrown hard against the wall, and falls in pain, lamenting. Even with the ultimate technique, he cannot defeat him. When his gaze returns to the hologram, he notices something. The teacher had some sword wounds. Even the final moment on the forehead had some effect, but they are all very superficial. He says that in terms of pure technique, he surpassed the hologram, but the experience in combat made all the difference. He has 4 years to complete the Academy's tests, and in these 4 years, he wants to surpass a true master like the teacher. 4 days later, at the Academy's training center, all the cadets, instructors, and the director are gathered. The director asks if they enjoyed their 4 days off, and that now he will explain how the 3rd test will work. In the 3rd test, 12 people will have to perform a formation. Most are surprised by the director's information. The protagonist not so much because he had already received. The director says that the minimum requirement to be part of the 12 who will do the formation is to have advanced martial proficiency, and these books teach the advanced martial arts of the 7 demon swords. With the help of the bullets they will be given, they will have no problems learning. The MC says that up to this point there's no problem. But the director says that the third test will happen in 7 days, and that each group will have to defeat an instructor who is in front of them now. The director says it's simple, but the students are perplexed as to how this can be simple. The instructors are specialists, and some may even have master-level proficiency. The protagonist is calm. Everything Yumpa said is going according to plan. Now they just need to announce the group leaders. The director says that's basically it. Now they just need to gather members and learn the formation, and that they will be dismissed right after he explains the leader selection process. The protagonist is surprised. The information Yumpa had was that they would select the leaders by levels. The director asks if the students see the yellow badge on the instructor's chests, and that the students who manage to take one will be the leaders. The students now think that everyone will fail. The protagonist says that even in the scenario where all the badges are taken, there are 207 people, and even with 17 groups of 12, 3 people would still be expelled. The director says that the instructors will not use their special techniques, only the techniques of the 7 demon swords. Cheon Yeo Woon reflects that even using only the demon sword technique, they have only 7 days to learn the technique, be good enough to counter it, and still defeat the instructor. The director notices that everyone is terrified and decides to scare them a little more. He asks if any student wants to challenge an instructor right now. After a brief silence, the director is disappointed, thinking at least one would accept. But as he is about to dismiss them, someone raises a hand. And to the director's surprise, not just one, but 3 people raise their hands. They are the leader of Group 1 and candidate for Vice Lord of the Black Clan, Cheon Yeo, leader of Group 8, our protagonist, and the leader of Group 12, Baekji, the only leader who defeated a candidate, who was Cheon Jangsum, the candidate from the Poison Clan. 2 men he did not expect volunteered, and that's incredible. Cheon Mukyum just watches the volunteers. Cheon Yeo Woon, looking at the guy who became the leader of Group 12, notices that he seems powerful. The director, pleased to have volunteers, asks the instructors which one of them will fight against the cadets. Before any of them could step forward, the director recalls telling the instructors of groups 1, 8, and 12 not to get too close to their cadets. The first instructor to step forward is the senior instructor, Ho Jin Chang. It wasn't someone the director expected to do this. Ho Jin Chang walks to the front of the others. This makes instructor Lim Pyong think that he doesn't need to volunteer, since his colleague will handle it. From now on, he thinks Cheon Yeo Woon will have to take care of himself because none of them will go easy on him. To the director, they must be trying to deny these cadets the position of leader for the time being. He suggests starting with Group 1, with the first cadet. Before Ho Jin Chang could volunteer, Instructor Yeo soon shouts from the front that he will face the first one. This irritates the senior, as the instructor knew that Ho Jin Chang was interested in that cadet. Yeo soon stepped forward because he thinks Cheon Moo Yun is the most suitable to become Vice Lord and doesn't want him to be humiliated there. With this, the bearded man says he'll take Cadet 18 then, which is Yeo Soon's cadet, and the director agrees with him. The last instructor, Sang Moon Yeo, is in charge of dealing with the MC, who he wanted from the beginning, so we see the first pair to fight approaching. Instructor Yeo Soon and the cadet greet each other before starting. Meanwhile, Cheon Yeo Woon asks Nano to analyze every detail of what happens. Finally, the director orders the combat to begin. The cadet advances at an impressive speed and uses the cloud palm flow technique. The instructor recognizes the technique, which is one of the top 3 palm arts in the main lineage, one of their specialties. It's a pity he can't use his poisonous arts in the duel, so he attacks with the 5th demon sword. The MC, who is just watching, feels that these moves are familiar to him. The cadet is not fazed by the technique, continuing his palm attack, which surprises the instructor. Excited by the fight, Yeo soon realizes that the cadet is a martial specialist in these attacks. Then the cadet notices that the instructor's attacks have changed. Yeo soon uses the 2nd demon sword to attack, knowing he can't treat the young man like an ordinary cadet. The cadet can hardly believe that his highest level technique is being blocked by the instructor's advanced art. The MC is shocked that the moves are the same as those he saw in the Sapphire, the difference being seeing that there are 12, half of the 24 destructive sword techniques, even without being sure because it was the demon sword that left those sword marks. Meanwhile, the duel continues. The cadet is doing his best to match Yeo Soon, concluding that the instructor is also a specialist, but a bit more skilled. As he can block his techniques, he must have much more combat experience. If he doesn't get close soon, he will be at even more of a disadvantage. There's no other way. Yeo Soon notices that the cadet's form has changed. He must be planning to end the fight with his best attack, so the instructor gathers all his energy to block it. The cadet advances to attack, preparing his palm technique, and the instructor is already preparing to block the technique. Suddenly, the cadet changes the direction of the attack. Yeo soon realizes that now his left hand is going to attack. This time, his block doesn't work as well. Even though the moves are the same, when reversed, they are harder to block. As he tries to stop the left hand, the cadet quickly dodges and prepares a new attack. For the first time, Yeo soon can't block it and is hit. The impact of the attack knocks him onto his back, while the cadet looks at him with a serious expression. Seeing this, all the cadets around are impressed, excitedly commenting that the guy defeated an instructor and that this cadet will be the next Vice Lord. The director remembers that only the leader of the Black Clan had been able to use the technique. The boy in front of him is a genius. Yeo soon pulls off the yellow badge from his chest, saying that the cadet managed to become a group leader in the third test, and the cadet thanks him. To the MC, who continues observing, something seems strange in the way they spoke. Can a person only take one badge? Then it's his turn to face an instructor. The best thing is to focus on this fight that will decide his future. He needs to prove himself to everyone. The instructor is impressed with him. Instead of being nervous about facing him, he is confident. Honestly, Sang Moon Yeo thought the young man wouldn't pass the first test, but now is the time to put an end to the MC's luck, as he intends to crush him in front of everyone. Cheon Yeo Woon prepares to start. The instructor recognizes that the MC is going to use the butterfly dance and lets him begin. The young man knows that even with specialist proficiency, he still lacks the internal energy of one. Letting him start is proof that he is being underestimated. Using the 10 stars defensive technique, he wants to finish it in just one attack. This catches Sang Moon Yeo by surprise. As soon as the MC raises his hand to attack, the instructor can hardly believe his speed and can barely dodge Cheon Yeo Woon's attack, being forced to retreat. While the MC's rapid attacks continue, Sang Moon Yeo finally stops just dodging. He notices that the MC has good internal energy, but his external energy is too powerful. Cheon Yeo Woon won't have an easy victory, even though he is being humiliated. Sang Moon Yeo stops the MC's attack, making the protagonist retreat. The instructor knows he still doesn't have the energy of a specialist and asks if he thinks he can escape, preparing to attack with the 4th and 6th demon swords. The MC can see even without Nano's help that this guy's techniques are unstable compared to the techniques from the Sapphire. It's too easy. As Cheon Yeo Woon approaches, the instructor thinks he's a fool for doing so, thinking that now he will easily finish him off. But instead, the one delivering a powerful attack is the MC, leaving everyone watching shocked. Even the director can't believe the MC nullified the Demon Sword's technique with basic butterfly dance movements. Now Sang Moon Yeo is enraged for being pushed back by a brat's techniques, who decides to knock out the MC with the 10 stars defensive technique, creating an internal injury in him. The director immediately notices his intention to use a lethal technique. The guy is crazy. Cheon Yeo Woon tries to block the instructor's attack, but the energy being forced into him injures his internal organs. He starts calling for Nano to help him, which quickly begins regenerating the injured organs. With regeneration activated, the MC begins attacking the instructor, who wonders why. How can he be doing this, even receiving internal injuries? Panicking, not understanding why the MC hasn't fallen with his attacks, he curses in anger, thinking he just needs to hold on with his energy armor. But the next attack hits his ribs, breaking them, making him vomit from the impact. The guy screams in pain after being hit. Both the other cadets and the instructors are shocked. They can hardly believe what they've just seen. Sang Moon Yeo grabs the MC's shoulder with the little strength he has left, and calls him a monster before falling to the ground. And there he lies unconscious and defeated. The MC is also out of breath. Even though he won, it wasn't an easy fight, standing in front of everyone. After seeing this, Cheon Yeo-chan realizes that Yumpa wasn't exaggerating, and his brother might be a problem. From above, the director reflects that being able to nullify the demon swords makes the MC a martial genius, and that he shouldn't have let the drunkard take care of him. The other instructors inform him that they will need to take Sang Moon Yeo to the infirmary. His ribs and 3 other bones are broken. Only now does the director remember that he didn't tell the instructors that the MC punched fortified walls. If Sang Moon Yeo had fought knowing this, he might not have been so humiliated. Holding the badge, Cheon Yeo Woon thinks that he managed to defeat an instructor. Having lost twice, the instructors are worried that the cadets will think they are weak now. The bearded man looks at his colleagues without saying anything, reflecting that they should be happy the next generation is strong instead of worrying only about themselves. He himself regrets not choosing to fight a cadet as skilled as the MC. The director announces that the final duel will begin. Ho Jin-chang will fight against Baek Ji-ai. The other instructors comment that the senior instructor cannot lose this match, and think that this cadet might also be hiding some skills. Before the match, Baek Ji-ai asks the instructor to grace him with his teachings. Finding him humble, Ho Jin-chang tells him to do his best. Then the two prepare to begin. At first glance, the elder doesn't seem weak. He gives a serious look with a strong presence, making the cadet wonder if this is the same person who was smiling a few moments ago. Not wanting to have regrets, he charges into the fight, leaping towards the elder. The MC only analyzes the techniques, thinking he'll gain an interesting character to fight. Returning to Baek Ji-ai's fight with Ho Jin-chang, the elder seems to see through the attack, and easily dodges the kicks. The cadet notices he did this just by moving his torso, and tries to attack again. The instructor quickly notices an opening in his back foot. Baek Ji-ai knows the instructor will attack that opening, and barely manages to dodge, spinning in the air above the elder, who wasn't expecting this, but won't underestimate the cadet's techniques, who spins to deliver another kick. Even hitting, it doesn't seem the attack was successful. The other cadets say the attack connected. Then we see the cadet's foot has been pierced by Ho Jin-chang's keyblade. The attack throws the young man back. The young man, with his injured foot on the ground, thinks that to have created a keyblade so quickly, the instructor must be a master. By using just a simple sword move, he is much stronger than the other instructors and asks what Baek Ji-ai will do now. The cadet manages to plant his injured foot on the ground, which surprises Ho Jin-chang. Despite the difference in skill, the cadet wants to end this with technique. For the instructor, this shows the young man has a good fighting spirit. The young man charges forward even with the injured foot, to deliver another kick attack. Ho Jin-chang is satisfied that the young man isn't backing down, preparing another key sword. But as the cadet approaches, his attack changes. The instructor realizes he used a feint, preparing the new attack from bottom to top. That doesn't lose strength due to the injury. The elder now knows the young man has the proficiency of a specialist. But something is wrong when he delivers the attack, and the young man realizes it was just an illusion. Then the real Ho Jin-chang appears in front of him. He says it's a shame because the cadet wasn't that bad, and strikes the young man in the chest. The powerful key attack pushes Baek Ji-ai away. He distances himself from the opponent due to the power of the attack, until he hits the ground. Now the other cadets comment that it's not so easy to defeat an instructor. The cadets who fought before were monsters. Baek Ji-ai coughs, knowing that if Ho Jin-chang hadn't held back, the key sword would have hit his heart. From afar, Cheon Yeo Woon thinks the cadet was just unlucky. If the instructor hadn't been a master, the guy would have had a chance. The other instructors must be pleased with the victory. Ho Jin-chang gives attack tips to Baek Ji-ai, saying he's looking forward to his progress. Despite trembling from the injuries, he still thanks the instructor for his teachings, and walks back to the other cadets, still coughing and limping. The MC looks at him among the others. Baek Ji-ai is pale, and his neck is red. He asks Nano to analyze the guy and be ready to show the analysis when the announcement of the third test is over. They hand out wooden swords for the test, only one for each. The director announces that they can become group leaders if they take a badge in 7 days. After that, the cadets are left alone. Cheon Yeo Woon reflects that he should consume the pill first, and check some things afterward. Then he notices several cadets in front of him. One of them looks at him seriously, and in response, He also receives a determined look. Then the bald guy appears, asking what they want with his sovereign. The four stand around Cheon Yeo Woon. He smiles after Hyo Bang calls him sovereign. On the previous night, in the dormitory of Group 8, the cadets are discussing changing things and how it might be dangerous. Hyo Bang admits he is afraid of the 6 main clans, but if it means living in disgrace. Because he comes from a small clan, he is willing to take the risk. With his sovereign, there is hope for people like him. The others reflect on what their companion said. Woong Chun asks if Hyo Bang really trusts the MC, and he confirms it. Then the others look at each other in agreement, pledging loyalty to Cheon Yeo Woon. Back to the present, the MC says the bald guy doesn't need to worry. The young man introduces himself as Cadet 857, Go Wang Ho, and the protagonist introduces himself as well. Being direct, Go Wang Ho says he wants to join the MC's group, leaving him surprised by the proposal. The group members are excited, thinking that the sooner they get the members they need, the more time they'll have to practice. Go Wang Ho mentions that he is from the Black Fist clan and is at the advanced level, so he won't hold the group back. Cadet 920, from the Black Horse clan Hakyung, is at the intermediate level but will be at the advanced level once he consumes the pill. 2 more advanced level cadets eagerly introduce themselves, One Il and Zhao Wumin. Other interested cadets complain that the elite clan guys will take all the group's spots. Cheon Yeo Woon thanks them for wanting to join the group but explains that he isn't looking for people just to pass the 3rd test, leaving the cadets confused about what he meant by that. He wants people to help him reach the main lineage, companions who will stay with him even in the worst times. Now the cadets whisper that they don't want to get involved in a battle of heirs. Many just want to pass the test. The MC reveals that he doesn't care if the cadet comes from a smaller clan, as long as they want to join him. He wants to change the foundations of the main lineage. Now many of the cadets are divided, thinking they should look for another group's leader. The MC shows them that he wants his companions to become part of the new foundation of the demon cult. Surprised, they discuss what they heard. One by one, they apologize for not being able to join the MC's group, as they just want to pass the test, and practically only his group remains in that place. Hyo Bang feels anxious, thinking they shouldn't have said these things after accepting them. Then he notices that at least 3 cadets remain in front of the group. Go Wang Ho, from the elite Black Fist clan, Zhao Wumin from an intermediate clan, the Golden Portal, and another from a mid-sized clan, Oh Jiang from the Treasure Sword clan. Go Wang Ho says the MC is different from the other candidates, and the journey he described could lead to their deaths. Being honest, he also wants to give up, which doesn't surprise the MC, as being from an elite clan, the guy could go after a better candidate. Cadet 857 also wants power and glory. After hearing about Cheon Yeo Woon's ambition, he wanted to approach him. Then the cadet kneels, and pledges loyalty to Master Cheon Yeo Woon. He asks to be used as his first sword, one of the future 6 swords of Cheon Yeo Woon's Demon King. Following his example, the other 2 also kneel. Zhao Wumin from the Golden Portal clan and Oh Jiang from the Treasure Sword clan also pledge loyalty to the MC. After a moment of surprise, Cheon Yeo Woon smiles and thanks the new companions who joined him. The bald guy, feeling jealous, says the newcomer can be the first sword, but he is the first subordinate of the sovereign. At the entrance of the training center, the MC asks the group to absorb the pills and memorize the text of the 7 swords. From the next day, they will train together, and he will analyze their movements and techniques. The group gets excited, thinking they chose the right sovereign who takes good care of them. In the MC's mind, all he has to do is beat them until they learn, just as the drunk teacher did. So they agree to meet later after consuming the pills. Before Cheon Yeo Woon heads to the training room, Cadet 857 calls out to him. He says it might be a silly concern, but the MC should always be accompanied by a subordinate, and is worried about how they were told to take the badges from the instructors. This makes the MC reflect that since the director said they had to take a badge to become a leader, it might not be just the instructors. The cadet continues, saying that since the MC has fewer men compared to Cadet 1, he might be a target. He says he will train in the room next to the sovereign, but Cheon Yeo Woon explains that he can't train there. When he shows where he trains, Cadet 857 is shocked, as only specialists can train there. This makes him think that the sovereign is incredible, and wants to do his best to train in the same place as him. A bit later, in the training room. The MC is testing his techniques. Now that he has become a specialist, he has surpassed 60 years of ki. If he uses the technique on a blade, he can create a ki weapon. He thanks Nano for helping him get there. And Nano, not modest, says he is there because of him. Then Cheon Yeo Woon asks Nano to show the video of Baek Ji-ai's fight. Nano activates augmented reality to show him. The MC asks to pause when Baek Ji-ai is on the ground, and zoom in on the cadet. He can see a little better the moment Baek Ji-ai spits, but he still wants to see a bit more of his face and neck. This time, he can see the marks on his neck better, the very red eyes and the red spots on the neck. He is certain of what it is. The next day, we see a fight between a cadet and an instructor. Instructor Hong Du-wai judges that the young man has surpassed the skills of a cadet. He is a specialist, just like him, and he knows he can't defeat him with the 7 demon swords, even if it doesn't completely nullify his movements. But he gains an advantage in the blind spots of the technique. He wasn't convinced of the guy's skill. To analyze the 7 swords in such a short time, he is a genius. The candidate of the Blade Clan, Cadet 5, Cheon Yeo-chan. Then the instructor says that continuing the duel is useless, and they should stop there. Cheon Yeo-chan knows what that means, that the instructor will hand over his badge. He tells the cadet to gather members for the group and expects great results from him. He finally succeeded. Now he thinks about who will be next. Meanwhile, in the academy's cafeteria, Baek Ji-ai is eating alone. Then someone sits next to him. Cadet 2, from the Sword Clan, Cheon Yeo Woon, says he liked his duel, but Baek Ji-ai slams his hand on the plate furiously and says with a serious look that he is eating and doesn't want to be interrupted. Cadet 2 gets irritated by the rudeness, but directly says that he was impressed by his specialist skills. He mentions that Baek seems to want to be a group leader and asks if he wouldn't like to go further, but the cadet continues eating without responding, irritating Cheon Yeo Woon even more. He controls his anger and tells Baek Ji-ai to think about his offer, that it's a good opportunity. Without saying anything, the cadet thinks that this is the second time. Before him, Cheon Yeo-chan also came to ask Baek Ji-ai to be his right hand. His goal is not to be a leader or go beyond, nor to be under others. What he wants is to become stronger. Then someone else appears to talk to him, and he sends the person away without seeing who it is. But the cadet continues, saying in a low voice that if he doesn't talk to him now, Baek Ji-ai might die. This paralyzes him, and he wants to know why. In front of him is Cheon Yeo Woon with a determined expression. The cadet says the MC is more arrogant than the others and won't be able to recruit people like that. Then the MC realizes there was a misunderstanding, but Baek Ji-ai gets angry, saying that besides being threatened, the guy says it was a misunderstanding. So the MC is direct with him and reveals that the cadet has been poisoned. He doesn't know what Cheon Yeo Woon is talking about, but the MC says he observed during the duel that the cadet was pale and had red spots on his neck. The cadet can't believe it. He was careful with Cheon Jong-sum since joining Group 12. Why tell him this? Even if he was poisoned, it wouldn't be Cheon Yeo Woon's problem. After a moment of silence, he apologizes for misunderstanding. But if he was poisoned, he would have noticed it during key meditation, and the MC asks if he feels well even during meditation. Despite it seeming like food poisoning, the MC knows if it would be noticeable during key meditation. Conveniently, he sees Dr. Baek passing by, and calls the doctor, who is setting his meal. The doctor asks how he is since they haven't seen each other for a while. The doctor comments that he didn't want to eat alone, and the MC asks him to examine Baek Ji-ai, as he thinks he was poisoned. This takes the doctor by surprise. Then we see the academy's infirmary. The doctor asks him to inhale some smoke through his mouth. Baek Ji-ai is confused, and the doctor asks him to just breathe deeply. As the cadet starts doing this, the scent of the incense paralyzes him. Then he starts coughing violently. As he coughs, the red spots on his neck become evident. Then the doctor confirms that he was indeed poisoned through food. Baek Ji-ai doesn't understand how this happened, as he was fine during meditation and eats alone. Then the doctor explains that this poison doesn't flow through the veins. The effects appear when it accumulates in the lungs and stomach. The substance can be used in food or as a powder that can be inhaled while sleeping. In small doses, it's hard to notice the inhalation, and he asks if the cadet shares a dormitory with any user of poison. On the first night at the academy, in the dormitories of Group 12, Baek Ji-ai fought with Cheon Jong-sum from the Poison Clan, and was threatened that he would no longer be safe. At the time, he didn't care about it, saying that at the academy strength was everything, and after winning, he became the leader of Group 12. From the ground, Cheon Jong-sum told him to enjoy the victory while he could, threatening that the poison clan grows stronger over time. Angry at the memory, Baek Ji-ai is sure he was poisoned by that guy. Since he discovered it early, he will be fine if he takes the antidote for 7 days, and the MC asks if he's really okay. Since he was hit in the chest during the duel, the symptoms worsened due to the lung stimulation. If the symptoms had been present all the time, nothing could have saved him. Then the doctor turns to Cheon Yeo Woon, asking how he knows so much about poisons. He reveals that his mother died this way, and that he was also poisoned for a time. At this moment, Baek Ji-ai remembers that he didn't thank the MC and thanks him for saving his life. The MC just says he didn't want anyone to die from a cowardly poison. But there was something more, which even scares the cadet. A bloodlust takes over the MC as he says he was looking for the source of this poison. Breaking the tension, the doctor suggests that Baek Ji-ai sleep in the infirmary that night, because if he goes back to the dormitory, he will be poisoned again. With a scary face, he says that it's better for the cadet not to try to take revenge now, as his foot is still injured. A bit scared, Baek Ji-ai says he doesn't intend to do that. The MC says he will take care of Cheon Jong-sum and that the cadet should rest as the doctor ordered. The doctor asks what the MC is planning, and he says they need to talk. Suddenly, a voice comes into his head, calling him a bastard through sound telepathy. His half-brother says he will find who he's looking for in the forest near the 5th dormitory, and gives a slight smile. Before leaving, the MC says that if this is true, he will make sure that guy has a place near him. Since the other two didn't hear what Cheon Yeo-woon said, they didn't understand what happened, and they think that the MC might be talking about dueling with one of them. What Cheon Yeo-woon wants is for the two to fight each other to the death. Then we see Cheon Jong-sum walking through the forest. As the instructors stay in the 5th dormitory, there's no one there, making it the perfect place to gather poisonous plants. With the pill, he has become an expert, and if he trains for a few more days, he will reach level 5 of destructive poison, where it becomes more lethal. At that level, even without using food poisoning, he will be able to finish off Baek Ji-ai. A voice behind him asks why he's so happy. The guy quickly turns around, asking who's there. He can't see who it is with the faint lantern light, but it doesn't seem to be an instructor. Approaching, the person asks if he felt happy after playing with poison, until we see that it's the MC who was saying this, and the guy asks what a bastard like him is doing there. Then he realizes that Cheon Yeo Woon said something about poison. The MC reveals that he noticed the red spots on Baek Ji-ai's neck, leaving the other surprised. For a moment, Jong-sum says nothing. Then he starts laughing, saying it's true. That's how he found out about Baek Ji-ai's poisoning then. When he was about to say that the MC's mother suffered the same poisoning, he gets a strong punch in the face, which he has no chance of blocking. It's clear that the MC was filled with rage when he attacked, distorting the cadet's face, who is thrown by the punch. The force of the blow is such that he spins and injures himself even more, until his body finally approaches something that can stop him, when he hits a rock wall very hard. At that moment, the guy is already almost unconscious. We heard his howl of pain echo through the forest. He's on the ground, trembling and groaning in pain, trying to understand what just happened. But the MC appears, telling him not to be a wimp, since they've just begun. Cadet 4 thinks the MC is trying to kill him, but that would break the academy rules, so he must be bluffing, and at that moment he realizes he can't move his body. The MC says he did something he shouldn't have and asks if he knows what he did. The guy remains immobile. He's in panic because his body isn't responding. Then the MC gets closer to him, about to throw another punch because Cadet 4 insulted his mother. At that moment, Cheon Young-sum's body moves, and he rises, cursing the protagonist and trying to hit him, saying that he let his guard down. But something surprises him. As soon as he realizes that Cheon Yeo Woon managed to block his punch, his 10-star technique was easily blocked. Then the MC grips the guy's fist tightly, squeezing it to the point where Cheon Young-sum screams in pain, seeing his fist being crushed. Now he concludes that the MC is serious and thinks he needs to kill him. Suddenly, his fist is in front of Cheon Yeo Woon, catching him by surprise as poison poison starts to seep from his palm. The MC covers his face to protect himself from the poison and steps back a bit to avoid being hit. But Cadet 4 doesn't stop, chasing him with his poisoned palm. As the MC stops moving away from him and the poison, we see that the part of his face that was hit has practically melted. Cadet 4 rejoices that the attack worked. At the 4th level of destruction, he can maintain 7 types of poison within himself, and this was the most dangerous of them. The boss had warned him not to use it on cult members, but being close to death, he wouldn't worry about that. But he's shocked when he sees the MC rising again. Nano tells us that a strong acidic poison was identified on the user's face and hand and activated the defense mode. Cheon Yeo Woon can't believe what he's seeing. Thanks to Nano, the MC's face was practically reconstructed. Cadet 4 can only curse, not understanding how this could happen. Not only did he neutralize the poison, but he also healed himself. This is something that shouldn't be possible even for a martial master. Then he falls on his butt, cursing the protagonist while trembling in fear. It's as if he's facing a real monster. The MC says that obviously, someone from the poisoned clan would use such a method. He explains that he thought and doesn't want people like him to continue living. The guy cries in terror and starts crawling on the ground desperately trying to escape. Instead, he gets a kick to the face that throws him backward with force. As he tries to get up, Cheon Yeo Woon starts coughing and realizes that several of his teeth have just fallen out. The MC turns to him once more. He begs on his knees for mercy. He lowers his head, repeatedly pleading for him to be spared this time. Then Cheon Yeo Woon grabs him by the arm and asks if he wants to live, if he wants to be spared. Even having made his mother die in agony, he still has the audacity to ask for this. At this moment, Cheon Yeo Woon thinks there's no hope left. He will never be forgiven. Then he remembers the instructors in the nearby dormitory and tries to mumble something. As he screams for help, he's hit on the back of his neck and realizes his voice has disappeared. The MC didn't like being underestimated by someone trying to call for help from the instructors. He steps on the hand Cadet 4 used to throw poison in his face, making the guy scream even more in pain. Then he lifts the foot he had used to step on the cadet's hand. Cheon Yeo Woon says he won't kill him to avoid being expelled for a trash like this guy, who has a moment of happiness knowing he will be spared. But with a terrifying face, the MC says he will beat him until he begs to go to heaven, and wonders if he will start with Cheon Yeo Woon's bones, who cries upon realizing what awaits him. A little later, we see Cadet 4 all twisted on the ground, thinking about how he ended up like this. It was all because he used a micro-poison on Baekji, remembering when he started learning about micro-poisons 6 years ago at the main house's poison pharmacy. He hears someone asking how long it takes for the poison to take effect, and a woman answers that it will take less than a day to the person buying the poison. He thinks it's excellent that it won't be fully noticed if the person doesn't have internal key knowledge. The cadet's mother, Lady Beck, says that no one without internal key will notice and asks what it will be used for. The buyer repeats the question while laughing, and Cheon Yeo Woon watches her leave the store. Before leaving, the woman glances at the young man, who is left wondering what she meant by that. Less than a month later, news of the death of the Lord's 7th wife, Lady Hwa, spread, and his mother, who hated her, was elated. But it was short-lived, as they discovered that the cause of death was a micro-poison, and his father was furious. They were spared his wrath when a doctor said that other clans also used micro-poisons. Hwa's cook committed suicide, and the culprit was never found. The only thing discovered was that his mother had contact with the lady in the veil, but no one knew who she was. His grandfather, who was the clan leader, lost his position on the council, and his father cut ties with the wives of the 6 main clans. His mother told him that if he admitted to giving the poison to the woman, it would be the same as confessing to the murder. This was supposed to be a secret the two would take to the grave, or he would face his father's wrath. Little Sumi heard his mother, somewhat frightened. His mother passed away a few years later due to guilt, and he wanted to tell everyone that it wasn't her fault, but he couldn't. At that moment, he swore he would become the Lord and avenge his mother against the guilty one and her entire clan. Since that dirty woman was the root of the problem, he would end end her offspring with his own hands. Returning to the present, he apologizes to his mother, because no matter how much he trains, he doesn't think he can defeat this crazy monster. The MC says that sooner or later he would use poison against other cadets, so he will destroy his dantian. This terrifies Cheon Yeo Woon even more, and he shakes his head in denial. The MC sees he's resisting even after activating the paralysis key pressure points. Maybe he wants to say something. As soon as he releases the silence key pressure point, Cheon Yeo Woon starts to babble something, and the MC asks Nano to analyze what he's saying. According to Nano, the guy said it wasn't the Poison clan that killed his mother. He wants to know more, and the cadet reveals it was one of the ladies from the other 5 clans, the true culprit. So he begs to spare his dantian, and almost speaks about the injustice his mother suffered. But he stops, or he would reveal that it was his mother who provided the poison to the woman. The MC senses something is wrong and asks Nano to analyze him, while asking if he's sure it was someone from the other clans. Cheon Yeo Woon affirms it by shaking his head, and Nano shows that the analysis reveals less than a 5% chance of him lying, which means he might have taken out his anger on an innocent person. So he asks if Lady Beck really had nothing to do with his mother's death. This time Nano alerts that there was a change in his facial muscles. The probability of lying is 75%, bringing back the MC's rage. The cadet screams that he is not lying, but Cheon Yeo Woon strikes him, telling him to be quiet. The guy screams in pain from the blow, which hit the middle of his chest, and begins to disperse his internal ki. While being hit, he thinks only of his internal ki. At that moment, on the 2nd floor of the Demon Academy's infirmary, the doctor has a bad feeling and thinks about preparing some antidotes. Suddenly, the door bursts open. The MC is carrying Cadet 4 and asks the doctor to do something with him. He shouts, asking what the MC did to make the guy like this, waking up the other patients. Cheon Yeo is shocked. Cheon Yeo Woon really brought the guy who poisoned Baek Ji, just as he said he would. The doctor puts 2 fingers on the cadet's pulse, and is shocked to realize that his dantian has been destroyed. The internal energy that was in his dantian was essential to form and maintain the poison he stored without injuring himself. Even though he is not a martial artist, he knows how precious the dantian is and expected something would happen, but not this. As soon as the doctor makes an incision in the cadet's chest, he coughs up the smell of poison flowing in his blood and is impressed that he is still alive. Maybe he has resistance due to using this type of martial art, but he could die soon. Then the doctor remembers he has something and starts to search, until he comes out with a small golden bag, saying it's his teacher's antidote. He asks Cheon Jong-sum to drink it. Even if it feels like he's dying while drinking, he will survive with this. The MC doesn't want him to die and asks if Nano can enter his body and heal him. But Nano reveals that it's against the system's rules since the registered DNA is the MC's. So, he asks Nano to analyze the poison and the blood splattered on his clothes. Nano asks him to put his fingers in the substance he wants to analyze. Once he does, Nano says there are 7 different types of toxins mixed together causing a new toxic effect, and the MC wants to know which medicines he can combine to create an antidote. Nano creates an augmented reality and starts listing various medicines that can be used. The doctor has just finished his work, saying he prevented the poison from spreading with acupuncture and the antidote. Then a smell reaches him. He realizes it's the scent of medicinal herbs cooking. He approaches Cheon Yeo Woon, asking what he is doing, and the young man says he's making an antidote to resolve the situation. The doctor thinks he's crazy, wondering how he could make an antidote. He looks at the detoxifying herbs the MC used, knowing they can be poisonous if used incorrectly. But the combination he made is perfect, and wonders if the MC studied medicine. The doctor says he made a good remedy but needs to know the poisons beforehand, so the MC describes all of them, leaving the doctor perplexed that he could know this. The MC asks that at least this time, Dr. Beck trust him. A little later, we see Dr. Beck administering some of the new antidote to Cadet 4. From the way he drank, he must want to live, and all they can do now is prevent the poison from spreading with acupuncture. Even though the MC made a good combination of ingredients, the doctor asks him not to be reckless again. To him, it was excessive that Cheon Yeo Woon destroyed the cadet's dantian. What will he do since the academy director and the Poison clan will not tolerate this? The MC thanks him for his concern and knows he will have to resolve the mess he caused. With that, Dr. Beck falls silent. He thinks the MC is still young and reckless, asking him to reflect on the consequences of his actions. From his experience, those who survive are the most intelligent, not the strongest. Anyway, It's late, and the MC should return to his dormitory. Baekji asks if he can also return, and the doctor allows him to go. The MC walks ahead of the other cadets seriously. He wanted to become stronger and achieved this thanks to Nano. Until now, he thought that power was all he needed to surpass others in the sect. That was just his arrogance. Baekji casts a silent glance at the MC, until someone asks why he went so far as to destroy Cheon Jangsum's dantian. The MC responds that he couldn't control his anger, and that he thought if he left him alone, he would use his poisons against other cadets. Baekji ends up thinking that the MC's decision-making might not be perfect, but he thinks differently from the other candidates. But before he could say anything, someone shouts for the MC, calling him sovereign. His group was looking for him, thinking he might have been ambushed. The MC apologizes for making them worry, and the bald man is glad that the sovereign is okay. Looking at how the MC interacts with the group, Baekji thinks the guy really found people who stand by his side. As for him, even in the dormitory, there is no one, so he says he's leaving. The MC asks what he was going to say before, but Beck says it wasn't anything important. Then the followers suggest they go back to the dormitory, and the MC agrees with him. In the dormitory, he tells them about what happened earlier. Cadet 857 points out that they need to get stronger, and that the Poison Clan is one of the central powers of the cult. As they might go after the MC, he should take care of himself and become more powerful. According to him, they need to be prepared now that they are enemies of the Poison Clan. Bubong is more concerned about how the director will deal with what happened. There is no rule saying you can't destroy someone's dantian, but it is the life of a martial artist, and the MC knows he acted without thinking. The next day, Cheon Yeo Woon is on the 3rd floor of the academy, in front of the director's office. The MC thinks his worries have come true. An instructor announces that he has brought him, and the director lets him enter the room. As soon as he enters, the MC introduces himself to the director, who doesn't look at him and continues writing, and a silence settles in the room. Meanwhile, the MC remains in a respectful position, and the director seems to glance in his direction. Still, not a single word is exchanged between them, until the director finally stops writing. He says he had to write a report because of the MC, so it's better he doesn't feel sad for not being greeted. He orders the young man to sit down. The MC obeys and sits without saying anything. The director pulls up a chair, saying they will deal with public matters first, and he will speak as the director. The MC wonders what he meant by speaking as the director. He explains that destroying the dantian is a stupid act. It had never happened before, and if they ignore it, another idiot might repeat it. Seriously calling the name of Cheon Yeo Woon, he orders the cadet to abandon his yellow badge and spend 5 days in solitary confinement in the detention center. The director's order leaves the MC surprised. He then asks if he won't be expelled, but the director doesn't even seem to have considered it. According to him, that would only happen if he failed one of the tests or killed another cadet outside of a duel or test. With that, Cheon Yeo Woon feels relieved since he was expecting the worst, expulsion, but the director tells him not to get too excited. The MC realizes that giving up the badge means losing his position as leader, and since he will spend 5 days in solitary confinement, he will have only 1 day left to get another one. He wonders if there will still be any instructors with a badge by then. We see in the director's thoughts that the MC should have been locked up for 7 days, but he's giving him an opportunity by reducing it to just 5. Then the director rests his arms on the table. A powerful aura begins to emanate from him, leaving Cheon Yeo Woon in shock. The aura is so powerful that he cannot even gauge the director's strength with his abilities. The director suggests they discuss the MC's foolish act, but not as director and cadet, rather as a veteran of the cult. He blocked all sound with his aura, as he doesn't want to be overheard by anyone, and he says something to Cheon Yeo Woon. The director reveals that he had high expectations of him, but the MC did something no one would do, and that disappointed him. The cadet apologizes, but that's not enough. The director wants him to know how to clean up the mess he made, leaving the MC confused about what he meant. The director explains that the MC attacked someone and destroyed their dantian out of revenge, and out of fear of letting them die, took them to the infirmary, yelling that if the MC is going to do something, he should do it right, that he's an idiot for leaving someone alive who could seek revenge. All Cheon Yeo Woon has done is put a target on his back. He needs to think at least 3 steps ahead. The MC understands understands that, unlike Dr. Beck who scolded him, the director is explaining how impulsive he was. Then the director asks why he joined the academy. With a serious look, the young man replies that he wants to become stronger than anyone else. The director inquires if anger and revenge are what motivate him to become stronger. Above all, he is a candidate for the heir, so he asks if he really wants to let anger and revenge control his decisions until he achieves his goal. If he can't control his emotions, he'll end up being destroyed by them. The MC says he thinks he understands the director's point. The director doesn't like uncertainty and believes that the MC and his group will be lucky if they don't meet a tragic end because of his impulsiveness. If Cheon Yeo Woon truly wants to be the future of the cult, he must have a fiery blood but a cool head, or he'll be crushed before he can even seek revenge. The MC knows the director is right. He only thought about revenge, but what will he do after that? Revenge must be a part of his journey, not the destination, and he needs to be more rational. The director gives him a silent look, thinking that the MC isn't so stupid that he can't think. If Cheon Yeo Woon understands himself and what he wants, the greatest monster in the cult's history could emerge, and that will be thanks to him, not the drunken teacher. Then he begins to dissipate his aura from the room, and the MC places the badge on the table. Respectfully, he thanks the director and says he will follow his advice. Immediately after leaving the room, the instructors are ordered to take the MC to detention. He asks for a moment before being taken, but the director refuses. The MC wants to explain what happened to his group, but the director reveals that his punishment will be announced publicly, and emphasizes that they are former group members since they are all just regular cadets now. The MC knows that he did this to teach him how foolish his actions were. The next morning, a plaque explaining what happened was put up for everyone to read. That Cadet 4's Dantian was destroyed and the MC will be punished with 5 days in detention, which should serve as a warning to other cadets. The cadets comment that the MC is crazy and might end up getting killed before he even graduates. Then the laughter of another cadet draws attention. Cheon Yeo laughs uncontrollably, thinking that his half-brother must have gone insane to destroy someone's Dantian. The guy can't stop laughing at the whole situation. Then he catches his breath, stopping his laughter. He had been worried about having a powerful rival, but since he was removed, he won't have that problem anymore. Cheon Yeo Woon also thinks it was lucky this happened. Meanwhile, Cheon Moo Yun remains silent about it. A little later, the MC's group gathers in the forest. Just as Go Won Hul expected, everyone is shocked, but he knows they have bigger concerns. When their sovereign returns, he will have only 1 day left, and perhaps it's better to take the badge from another group. Then someone grabs their attention. Unexpectedly, Baek Ji went to meet them. So the next day, around 10 p.m., we see 2 instructors guarding the entrance to the detention room, and inside the room, the MC is training tirelessly. Out of breath, he asks Nano to end the combat simulation. Then he collapses on the floor, feeling very hungry, but he only has a few pellets to eat, complaining that they are dry and hard, but he will have to eat them for 4 more days. He thinks that since the place is very humid and stuffy, a normal cadet wouldn't last a day there. Despite being smaller than the training room, no one is watching him there, and he concludes that he needs to get as strong as possible in 5 days. Suddenly, the stone door behind him opens. The MC is surprised, as it shouldn't be time for it to open yet. Someone wearing a cloak appears in the doorway, and the MC wonders who this person with such a bloodthirsty aura is. With just a wave of the hand, the MC is lifted by key telekinesis, and he panics because he has no way to react. The elder behind the hood says darkly, "So, this is Cheon Yeo Woon." At the cult's castle, in the Poison Clan's estate, the arrival of cadet number 4 on a stretcher shocks his uncle. Trembling at what he's seeing, he orders this to be reported to the clan leader immediately. The cadet's uncle is named Baek Moon Woon, and he is the clan leader's second son. The elder angrily crushes the letter that was delivered to him. He can't believe what he just read. A man tells the leader that they can't let this go. They shouldn't wait until he leaves the academy. The group discusses sending an assassin, bribing an instructor, or having a cook poison the MC's food. The leader says the ideas are terrible and asks if they've forgotten the incident 6 years ago when Lady Hwa died. In great anger, Baek Moon Woon shouts that if they don't do something, the clan's reputation will fall. But the leader tells him not to be foolish. If that were the case, the Sound clan would have acted too. Beko says that since the incident, the Lord has been trying to weaken the 6 clans, and killing a student at the academy would give him an excuse to do so. Trembling with rage, Baek Moon-woong asks if they will have to wait until Cheon Yeo Woon leaves the academy. Then, the clan leader asserts that they should, but that he will personally meet with the academy director. Then we return to the MC being lifted by the clan leader using telekinesis. It seems he won't show any mercy to the young man. Despite his 10-star key, the MC isn't able to resist. Beko's power is much greater than he imagined. He knows that the man intends to kill him, and if he doesn't do something, that's exactly what will happen. So he gathers his strength and manages to move his arm, surprising the elder, who didn't expect that. Beko notices that the young man is using physical strength instead of internal energy to resist, and wonders how he can have such external strength. The leader thinks there's no other way, and with a wave of his hand, he pulls the MC towards him. Then the leader raises his hand high and firmly grabs the protagonist by the neck. Nano detects the hostility and initiates defense mode, but the MC orders him to stop. The MC knows the elder has a reason for being there and thinks he should be cautious. Retaliating could end up hurting him. Realizing that the MC didn't strike back, Beko says the MC was able to think quickly, and reveals that he wanted to see the face of the one who hurt his grandson. Only then does the MC realize who he is. The old man before him is the leader of the Poison clan, and he says the MC should know why he's visiting him. The MC starts to despair and thinks about how to get out of the situation. A little more force could break his neck. Cheon Yeo Woon wonders if he's going to die like this, without even being able to get his revenge. Meanwhile, Beko sees in the young man's eyes that even at 15 years old, when faced with death, he stares at it rather than lowering his head. Then the old man grabs his staff, saying that the MC really needs a lesson. The powerful ki aura emanating from the weapon strikes the MC and throws him backward, stopping only when he hits the wall of the detention room. The impact makes the MC spit blood, but the old man doesn't stop. He pulls the MC back using telekinesis, thinking that this has taken the arrogance out of the young man's eyes. But the protagonist continues to stare at him without showing fear. The old man knew that the MC had a lot of anger for destroying his grandson's dantian, but he didn't expect it to be this much. And he thinks that Cheon Yeo Woon will become a problem if left like this. The MC asks if the old man is going to break the cult's rules and kill him, but he scoffs at the threat, saying that if he makes the MC's body disappear with acid, no one will find out. Then the young man retorts that if he disappears, his clan will be the prime suspect. Beko continues to think that if someone as skilled as the MC grows up, they will become an enormous problem. If it weren't for the academy, he would end him right now, and says that hurting his grandson shows that the MC isn't very smart. But since he knows he can't kill him, he makes a promise. The old man promises that as soon as the MC leaves the academy, he will make him feel unimaginable pain, break his bones, and other things, besides destroying his dantian before the end. The MC knows the old man is serious. Beko looks at the MC with a victorious smile, who is still being controlled by telekinesis. Through telepathy, the old man warns that he will leave a farewell gift for the MC. Then he forces something into his mouth, explaining that this way the young man will be able to find him soon. With no choice, the MC swallows the gift. The old man warns that it's not a fatal poison, but if he says it was given by him, he'll end up dead. Then he uses telekinesis again to throw the MC back, and hurls him against the wall once more. The old man says goodbye, and walks towards the cave's exit, leaving the MC injured and angry inside. As soon as he leaves, the instructors reseal the entrance, and a man in front of him says he thought they had an agreement. In other words, it was the director who allowed the old man to enter there. Beko says that in his place, the director would have done the same, unable to hold back when someone hurts his family. Even so, he apologizes for his actions and explains that it wasn't serious enough to damage any internal organs. Although clearly irritated, the director says he understands the old man and asks him not to cause any more trouble. He only allowed him in because the old man promised not to harm him for the 4 years he'll be there. Beko assures that no one will know about this until he's in a grave. Then he leaps, disappearing from sight, heading towards the forest, observed by the director, who, once alone, looks towards the detention room, thinking that the MC has only 4 years of protection from outside forces. After that, his survival will depend solely on himself. Inside the cave, Cheon Yeo Woon is coughing due to the poison the elder made him swallow. Nano alerts that it has detected a poisonous substance in his body, and the MC commands Nano to expel it. Nano explains that the poison's effect dissipates energy, and if neutralized, the remaining substance can be used as a medicinal pill. Then the MC realizes that the old man wanted him to fail the third test and be expelled so that he could be killed by him. It's a pity for the old man. Thanks to Nano, his plan won't go as intended. Thus, the MC orders Nano to expel only the poison from his body. Although it's not much, the poison that leaves his body is quite foul-smelling, what remains of it. It reacts positively to the MC's body energy, and he wonders if the effect is similar to the dragon's medicinal pill. To test it, he uses ki meditation along with a breathing technique. If he's right, it will be a great blessing in disguise. A little after beginning the meditation, a great and powerful aura emanates from his body. He opens his eyes seriously, barely believing that his energy has increased from 60 to 90 years. He thinks excitedly that he received a huge gift from the Poison Clan's leader. He still can't believe the audacity the Poison Clan had in attacking him, and he would be in trouble if it weren't for Nano. The MC vows not to act without thinking again, knowing that all of this is a result of his stupidity. Thanks to the poison, the shirt he used to clean himself became unusable due to the stench. Then a current of air catches his attention, making him wonder where the wind is coming from. And it seems the wind is coming through the cracks in the wall, made when he was thrown against it. And now that he thinks about it, the sound when he hit it seemed hollow. Curious, he starts punching at the crack, which soon opens a small hole in the wall. Since it broke with just a few hits, he believes he can make a passage. Soon after, we see the MC coming out of the hole he made. As soon as he emerges, he finds himself facing a sort of tunnel. He thought he would find a larger cave, not this. So he uses another nano function, night vision. Walking through the tunnel, he wonders if it was intentionally blocked. If so, there might be something hidden there. Nano alerts him that it detected a faint light at the end of the tunnel, making the MC think they are luminous stones. But it seems that wasn't what awaited him at the end. As it becomes clearer, he asks Nano to deactivate the night vision. As he gets closer to the end of the tunnel, the light becomes increasingly stronger. Then we see that the tunnel's end looked like a door to a massive place. Surprised, the MC questions what kind of place that is. To see better, he jumps inside that place, which appears to be covered by a dome. He had no idea such a place could exist within the detention center. He finds the place where the exit should have been, but since it's no longer used, it was blocked. Then he notices a mark on the ground. It looks like some kind of monolith was dragged, causing the marks. Thinking about the monolith, he recalls having seen one, but it couldn't be the same. So he asks Nano to activate augmented reality and project a 3D model of the monolith from the library's first floor. As requested, the model of the sapphire monolith begins to be recreated. Then he asks Nano to compare the marks on the ground to see if any were made by the monolith. For this, several models of the sapphire piece appear around the place, and Nano determines where the piece must have originally been, confirming what he initially thought. He then asks Nano to do the same with the second floor monolith. Soon after, Nano shows where the other monolith used to be, leaving the MC satisfied to see where the pieces were originally located. He wonders why the monoliths were separated by floors and questions what that central stone pillar is. Then something catches his attention as he walks around the pillar, where it is written, Heavenly Demon Sword Art. Cheon Yeo Woon reads the inscription incredulously. In the cult, the most powerful martial art is the Heavenly Demon God's art, and outsiders consider it one of the top 3 divine arts. But he has no idea what the Heavenly Demon Sword Art is, as he has never heard of it. He had heard that the Lord's most powerful art was the Heavenly Demon Sword. Perhaps this is the name of the sword technique that was on the monolith. The MC asks Nano to compare the writing on the monolith with that on the pillar, and Nano indicates that the two are identical, making the MC recall the library guards saying there were rumors that an ancestor wrote a sword technique on the sapphire. The true name of the absolute sword technique he left behind must be the Heavenly Demon Sword Art, and the holes in the pillar are in the shape of a rising dragon. The MC inquires what the image is trying to convey, wondering if it has something to do with the number of holes. He can only think that there are 24 holes, and the art has a total of 24 movements. But there must be a reason for making the holes in the shape of a rising dragon. Thinking this, an idea occurs to him. Then the MC looks up toward them. The pillar shines with the light coming from the ceiling, burning the protagonist's eyes. Nothing the ancestor left behind is easy to obtain, having hidden his secret with light instead of darkness. To solve this, he asks Nano to adjust the light perception in his eyes, and Nano activates the anti-light vision mode. The MC can hardly believe what he sees. There are small writings on the luminous stones, and he is euphoric that his guess was correct. Then he asks Nano to analyze all the writings on the stones. Nano quickly does so, and the MC asks it to create 3D models of the stones to see them up close. After that, he wants the stones to be organized by their relevance to martial arts. Then Nano surprises him by stating that it found writings and drawings of a breathing technique on 24 stones, which are exactly the ones that formed the shape of the dragon. The MC is ecstatic. This is what the holes in the pillar referred to, and he asks Nano to keep only those 24 stones. As requested, Nano discards the other stones, and we can see a text followed by a drawing of how one of the techniques should be performed. The text says that internal energy must flow through specific blood pressure points while moving in a certain way. The movements are the same as the sword technique on the monolith, which means that he must use the breathing technique while performing the sword technique's movements. The strange thing is that normally breathing techniques require controlling ki while sitting cross-legged for better breathing. Nevertheless, he decides to try it and asks Nano to give him the information about the stones that make up the dragon. As soon as Nano inserts the information into the MC's brain, he tries to breathe while controlling the ki, as the technique suggested. Nano informs him that a powerful energy is flowing through his 14 meridians, and is analyzing and compiling this data. The MC moves quickly, testing the movements of the new technique he discovered. Meanwhile, the instructors guarding the detention entrance are drowsy, having no idea what's happening inside, and the MC continues to test the technique, which appears to be effective and powerful. As soon as he stops sweating, he asks Nano how long he used the technique, and he is surprised when informed that he was in motion for 2 hours. Instead of feeling fatigued, he feels invigorated. It seems his ki flows faster when repeating the movements. Nano explains that his energy circulation has become faster, and the MC thinks about trying to use ki. Soon his aura begins to emanate, encompassing his entire body. It moves powerfully around him, leaving the MC surprised by the speed. With the ki flow faster, he can release it more freely. This is the true breathing technique that cannot be compared. When the sword's movement and the technique are in harmony, he will have what was called the sword art. The ancestral demon was truly divine. Then the MC falls to his knees, asking his ancestor to accept the reverence of his unworthy descendant. 4 days later, the MC's group comments that Cheon Yeo has 4 badges, Cheon Yeo Woon has 2, and Cadet 700 has 2. Besides them, there are 7 cadets, each with 1 badge, making a total of 11 group leaders. They discuss that the only remaining badge is the one held by instructor Ho Jin Chang. Hubang is furious that 3 people hold more than half of the badges, and no one has been able to go against them. Cadet 857 points out that, according to rumors, these cadets have reached the expert level or even higher. Another says that, on the bright side, at least they managed to eliminate the rotten apples. Ma Chio curses that some of his comrades have defected. To Cadet 857, that path was not for them. Hubang recalls that they apologized before leaving, saying they had no other choice, seeing them as opportunists, who left as soon as they heard of their sovereign's punishment. The group falls silent, reflecting on the difficult situation they find themselves in. Seeing how depressed they became, Hubang tries to cheer up his comrades, pointing out that even though they lost 2 men, they still have Baek Ji, who is worth 100. Ko Wong-her agrees that if it weren't for Baek Ji, they and the MC would be in trouble. They are grateful to the cadet for defeating an instructor 4 days ago. Baek Ji feels indebted to the MC, so he wanted to help him, but he is unsure if he will be accepted into the group. But upon hearing from Cadet 857 that if the MC didn't like him, he wouldn't have helped, he feels more at ease. Changing the subject, the group decides to train until dinner, in front of the cafeteria at dinner time. Cadet 857 notices that Baek Ji is not going to the cafeteria. Baek Ji explains that he usually skips lunch and only has dinner, but since he had lunch with the group, he will skip dinner. With this, Cadet 857 says he will also skip dinner because he needs to protect the group leader, even if it's a temporary leader. Baek Ji-ai explains that it's not necessary since he's going to the training center. It's better they enjoy dinner. With this, the cadet ponders the best decision to make. To help, the other cadet says that he and Hubong will go with the leader, leaving Cadet 857 happy that he can have dinner. In this case, no one bothered to ask if the bald guy wanted to go. Anyway, the two follow Baek Ji-ai, who asks if they aren't going to have dinner, but skipping a meal won't kill them. Cadet 999 reinforces that they came because they are concerned about the leader. They can't let him be attacked. In response, Baek Ji-ai just smiles at his comrades and says that they worry too much. When the MC returns, he won't even be able to eat in peace. The group arrives in front of the training center, and Cadet 18 reinforces that he will go alone from now on. Then he is surprised by something. His comrades don't understand why he suddenly becomes apprehensive. Then several other cadets appear, making the duo worried about what will happen. Baek Ji-ai barely turns around, and in the blink of an eye, the trio is completely surrounded by a large group. Cadet 18 whispers that since they are carrying swords, they must have been waiting for them. Then a guy steps forward, leading the group. Ha-il Myung stands at the front with a victorious expression on his face. Baek Ji-ai quickly identifies them. Some of them were members of his old group, and Baek Ji-ai doesn't like this situation at all. Apprehensive, Cadet 999 asks what the group wants with them. Ha-il Myung inquires if he really doesn't know what's going on, and demands that the group leader hand over his badge. But Cadet 18 obviously refuses to do what the other asked. Cadet 108 smugly says that if they don't hand it over, they might get hurt, and starts smiling maliciously. Since they are the MC's lackeys, he won't let the trio go easily, even if they hand over the badge. Being called lackeys makes Cadet 999 furious. On the other hand, Baek Ji-ai is fearful, knowing they don't have enough strength to face 30 advanced cadets. Knowing that Ha-il Myung has strength similar to his own, he tells Oh-jong that he will pass the badge to him and that he must flee with Ho-bong because it's impossible for all of them to escape. But he will do his best to hold off the enemies. But for Oh-jong, they have to escape together. Then Baek Ji-ai reinforces that if they lose the badge, the group will be disbanded again, and everything will be in vain, explaining that even the MC won't be able to take the badge from a senior instructor. Observing the two, Cadet 108 realizes they must be communicating through sound telepathy. To interrupt their conversation, he orders his group to attack them. At this moment, Baek Ji-ai takes his badge, handing it to Hubong, who wasn't part of the previous conversation and doesn't understand why he was chosen. Baek Ji-ai feels sorry for abandoning them as the group leader, but that doesn't mean he can forgive the disgusting behavior of these guys, who soon lose their courage when their swords are shattered by Baek Ji-ai's kick, who spins in the air once again, hitting a group of cadets with just a single strike. The cadets are scared, not expecting so much power from him, who is about to crush more of them with his powerful kick. He hits one of them in the mouth, who has no chance to react. The gang leader, just watching the fight, realizes that Cadet 18 still has little ki and imagines he might be an innate specialist just like him. Baek Ji-ai steps back from the group after the attack, and tells his companions to flee at that moment. Then Hubong, who has the badge, calls out to his companion. The two run desperately to escape the group. The group sends some of its members to chase the bald guy with the badge. Hubong curses angrily at being called bald, even though it's true. Baek Ji-ai, who is buying time for them to escape, tells his companion to stop complaining and focus on fleeing. Meanwhile, the group continues to run, shouting at the bald guy to stop running. Slowly, they are getting closer to the duo, and the bald guy sees they are almost being caught. Oh-jong, who is further ahead, knows that Hubong's movement techniques are not enough to shake off the pursuers, so he stops running, and asks Hubong to hand over the badge to him. Without hesitation, the bald guy stretches out his hand to hand it over, and his companion asks him to keep running no matter what happens. Thus, the bald guy takes a different route from his friend. He needs to reach the cafeteria and inform his companions about what's happening, giving his all to run as fast as he can. He finally spots the cafeteria. Then he finally realizes something and stops running immediately, looking back in disbelief, as he has just realized that no one is following him. Meanwhile, in the cafeteria, the rest of the group is dining peacefully. As soon as Ko Won-her notices that Ho-bong is there, he asks why his companion is sweating. The bald guy is out of breath from running and needs to catch his breath before saying anything. Exhausted, he explains that they need to go to the training center immediately. Cadet 857 stands up, wanting to know what happened, and the bald guy says it was an ambush, and that at that moment, Baek Ji-ai and Oh Jang are fighting. The group is now alarmed, and Cadet 857 is the first to run to help his companions. With just one leap, he covers a great distance, thinking that his fears have become reality as he runs. Then he jumps onto a rooftop, managing to see his companions surrounded by a large group. He descends, shouting Baek Ji-ai's name in concern, but soon is shocked, asking what happened upon seeing Baek Ji-ai standing and Oh Jang on the ground. From the condition, it's clear that he has been knocked out, and he fills with rage. Upon seeing who must have planned the ambush, he asks how that cadet dared to do this. The bald guy also looks at the guy in shock, recognizing him. The four stand before the one who orchestrated all this, and Cheon Yeo-chan says that it seems there is an infestation of pests in that place. Annoyed, Cadet 857 asks who he is calling insects. How could Cheon Yeo-chan have the nerve to say that after conspiring and ambushing them? Then, a hand is placed on his shoulder. Baek Ji-ai asks his comrade to calm down, explaining that it wasn't Cheon Yeo-chan who attacked them. With a look of disdain, the cadet says that now they owe him one, and since they've lost the badge, they have no more chances. Baek Ji-ai seriously states that he won't change his mind, but the other asks him to think about his offer, because he will have plenty of time to do so. Cadet 857 collapses to the ground as they are left behind by the other group. He asks how Baek Ji-ai's wound is, and his comrade says it's not serious, but he's frustrated that they lost the badge and apologizes. In tears, Hobong holds the hand of his friend Oh Jang, who endured until the end to protect the badge, cursing the heavens for what happened to his comrade. Seriously, Ko Won-her asks Cadet 18 what happened, and Baek Ji-ai shows anger just at the memory. We return to Oh Jang running, being chased by the group. Suddenly, he trips and falls, rolling down a staircase. Despite being down, he refused to hand over the badge to the enemies, who captured him and used him as a punching bag. Meanwhile, Baek Ji-ai was fighting the group's leader, who, even being a natural-born specialist, could not fight him alone. With a quick sword movement, he is struck by another cadet in the leg. Then he falls to his knees on the ground. When he's about to be struck by Ha-il-mail, Cadet 5 appears with his group, apologizing for intervening, saying that he is interested in Baek Ji-ai, and that it would be better if the group handed him over to him. The gang leader yells not to interfere in their problem and that he wouldn't win, even if outnumbered. The response makes Cheon Yeo-chan sigh in disdain. Then he walks towards the group, easily defeating them one by one, until he reaches their leader, giving him a smile as soon as he reaches him. Cheon Yeo-chan doesn't care that they have a few more lackeys and asks if the guy will continue to challenge him. Frightened, knowing he can't win against Cadet 5, Ha-il-mail orders the gang to retreat. Despite his injured leg, Baek Ji-ai stands up and tells Cheon Yeo-chan that he owes him. Stating that the group won't get another badge now, Cadet 5 invites Baek Ji-ai to be his subordinate. Back in the present, Cadet 18 explains that he refused the offer, and at that moment, his comrades arrived. Cadet 857 inquires if Cheon Yeo-chan's interest in his comrade is due to the heir's battle. Frustrated, Baek Ji-ai says it doesn't matter because now they are out of options. At that moment, another comrade suggests that they gather more cadets to take revenge, but Cadet 857 reminds them that gathering people just for that would be against their leaders. This disheartens the comrade, who without a better idea, doesn't know what to do. Baek Ji-ai inquires about what they can do now, and according to Ko Won-her, they have no other option. If he's talking about getting the senior instructor's badge, Baek Ji-ai explains that it will be impossible. Cadet 857 knows his comrade has a point in saying this, having fought against him, but at that moment, they need to believe in their sovereign. But Baek Ji-ai wonders if believing in the leader is really the only option they have. Changing the subject, Hubang informs them that he will take Oh Jang to the infirmary, and another colleague rushes to help him. Before leaving, he affirms that, as Cadet 857 said, he trusts their sovereign and believes in him more than anyone else. But he doesn't think it's fair to depend solely on him. As servants, they should do something for themselves. If they have no other option until he returns the next day, they should at least gather more cadets. This makes Cadet 857 look frightening. Scared of him, the bald one apologizes, thinking he went too far. Then Cadet 857 starts laughing, and the bald one doesn't understand anything. He says with a smile that Hubang is right, that they shouldn't just depend on the leader. They should be like his hands and feet. Saying that the bald one is the most dedicated among them, the others also praise him, and they all walk to the infirmary, more cheerful. The next day, around 8 a.m., Instructor Lem Pyong is running through the forest and wonders if the MC endured detention well. They arrive at the instructors guarding the door and ask ask for it to be opened as the detention is over. Then the rock moves, and he says from the detention door that Cadet 7's punishment is over. The MC was sitting serenely meditating, and he gives a determined look at the instructor, leaving them both surprised. They certainly didn't expect to see him so well. For Lim Pyong, those are not the eyes of someone who spent 5 days locked in a cave. Now the MC's eyes shine even more. Then he asks what happened to his shirt, and as soon as the MC shows it, they have to cover their noses due to the stench. The instructor throws it away, incredulous that it could smell so bad. Then the MC notices the other instructor at the cave's door. The guy enters and looks around inside, while the MC watches to see if he'll find anything strange inside. But soon after, the instructor returns, saying there's nothing unusual there. They overlook the hole that the MC covered with stones. On the way, Cadet 7 asks how many badges are left. Lim Pyong says that only one remains, and he affirms that it belongs to the one the MC is thinking of. But he should know that the senior instructor's badge is not the only option. The MC knows he can also take it from other cadets. Then Cadet 7 tells the instructor that he wants to go immediately to instructor Ho Jin Chang, who has the last remaining badge, leaving the guy in shock at the abrupt decision. The MC should take a bath first since he's stinking like a skunk. Returning to the conversation, the other instructor asks if the MC has gone mad, thinking the decision is rash and out of his league. Lim Pyong also agrees that the MC shouldn't do this out of desperation. After a moment of silence, the MC thanks them for their advice and says if the fight is too difficult, he will give up, but he at least wants the chance to fight. This makes the instructor think that Cadet 7 hasn't learned anything from the punishment. The other instructor points out that perhaps the senior instructor won't have the mercy to stop the fight if necessary. But seeing the MC's conviction, Lim Pyong has no choice. He asks the cadet to avoid getting hurt or else he won't stand a chance. Then the MC thanks him, promising to take his words into consideration. Elsewhere, a cadet can't believe he's being recruited to be the MC's servant. He tells the bald guy who invited him to get lost, thinking it's crazy. The poor bald guy, who was shoved away, stands there alone, feeling sorry for himself. This was the 4th rejection he received. Even though he's disheartened, he decides to try a little more. Then we see several cadets gathered. The bald guy, who was passing by, gets curious about what's happening. Seeing the other cadets with serious expressions, he thinks there might be a problem. Then he's in shock. His sovereign is standing a bit further ahead. The other cadets are whispering if the MC is really going to do this, having just come out of detention. Then Instructor Ho appears, analyzing Cadet 7 from above. One of his top candidates came after him alone. Respectfully, the MC greets him and is praised for enduring the detention center. He asks if the MC wants to fight with a wooden sword or bare hands, and he chooses bare hands. Thus, the two stand facing each other, ready to begin. Meanwhile, the bald guy is worried if his sovereign will withstand this fight. The instructor is the first to move. A powerful aura begins to emanate from his body, leaving the other cadets frightened. They are sure the MC will lose. Cadet 7 thinks he lost a lot with the punishment. If he wants to gain the cadet's support, he needs to do this. In a fighting stance, the instructor says the MC can strike first. He says he's eager to learn from the elder, thinking that in the cult, power is everything. Then the two stare at each other. After taking a deep breath, the MC charges to make the first attack, surprising the instructor with his speed. However, the older man thinks he has already fully analyzed his blade skills. The MC doesn't back down from the attack, catching Ho by surprise by moving as fast as him and still managing to prevent the attack from being effective. Ho is incredulous that the cadet used a sword technique instead of a blade one. Then several other attacks follow, with the MC and the instructor evenly matched in their attacks. Ho is excited that the MC can counter the 5th sword movement. The MC also thinks the fight is going well. The instructor says that since he knows techniques at this level, then he shouldn't mind if he raises the level. The MC is caught off guard, with Ho using the 7 demon swords, the 4 techniques unleashed simultaneously. The cadets are all shocked by the demon sword of a martial master. The MC, on the other hand, remain serious, using the celestial demonic sword art. The cadets hardly know what move that was, which is fast and powerful enough not to lose in power against the instructor. Ho practically panics, seeing the sword technique the MC uses. He knows he can't block it, and needs to use his defensive ki. But before that, he's hit by the blow, being thrown into the air, as he's pierced by the MC's speed. In the audience, the cadets are speechless, and the MC remains serious. Then the instructor lands, recovered from the blow. Cadet 7 is satisfied. The 7 demon sword technique and the destructive sword are indeed similar. On the other hand, his opponent doesn't seem pleased at all. Immediately, the MC notices something has changed in the instructor. Ho's fighting spirit hasn't diminished. That fight was not over yet. It's a good thing the instructor used the 10-star key to withstand the blow. If they were using real swords, he would have died. Although he didn't use his special techniques, he also didn't go easy on the MC. In his thoughts, Ho praises the cadet, as he was able to make him fight with all he had. The MC is shocked by what the instructor just did. He expelled ki from his body. This time, Ho Jincheng seems even more threatening. Cheon Yeo Woon had heard that masters could expel foreign ki from their bodies. The master, excited in a frightening way, proposes they have some fun. Then he feels something that seems to intimidate him, and he just keeps staring at his opponent. Then his powerful aura starts to dissipate, leaving the MC confused, as the instructor is lowering his fighting spirit. And indeed, the man does nothing, just remains silent, until he says he's impressed with the MC. He is the perfect example of someone who gets better every day. Removing his badge, the instructor reflects that perhaps a monster challenging the imagination of the clan's main lineage has been born. Then he hands the badge to the young man. Ho admits that as an instructor, he lost that day, and that the MC is more than qualified to be a leader. Hearing this makes the MC's eyes sparkle. Excitedly, the cadet thanks the instructor. After witnessing this, the audience cheers excitedly. One of the cadets was able to defeat the feared Ho Jincheng. Ho Bang is in tears, moved to see his sovereign, especially after this impressive victory. He approaches, saying that they had been waiting for their sovereign's return. The MC apologizes for making them worry, but the bald man doesn't stop crying, asking the MC not to apologize. From a distance, the instructor observes the relationship between Cheon Yeo Woon and his subordinates, satisfied. Suddenly, someone calls out to the MC. Since he wasn't expecting to see Baek Ji, he wonders what he could want. While the cadet remains silent, looking shy, the MC wonders if he came to say something important. Then Baek Ji kneels, leaving the MC completely puzzled. Both he and the bald man look at Cadet 18, confused by this behavior. Finally, the MC suspiciously asks why the guy is kneeling out of the blue, saying it's weird. Baek Ji, who seems even more nervous, mumbles a few words that no one understands, until he shouts, still very embarrassed, that he wants to express his gratitude. Shouting, he declares that he was saved from the poisoned clan by Cheon Yeo Woon. This generates comments from the cadets watching the scene, while the MC still doesn't know how to react to this. Cadet 18 continues, saying he was moved to see that the MC was sent to detention after saving him. The MC, embarrassed by the situation, can't stop thinking about why Baek Ji is talking like that. The whispers from the other cadets continue, discussing that the MC did something like this for Cadet 18. At the height of his embarrassment, Baek Ji swears to dedicate his life to serving Cheon Yeo Woon as his loyal servant. Only now does the MC understand that this was part of the cadets' plan, which worked, as the other cadets now comment that the MC was sent to detention for protecting his servant. Ko Won-her, observing them, is happy that the plan worked but thinks Baek Ji's speech was embarrassing. Baek Ji, burning with shame, is determined that this is the last time he accepts ideas from Cadet 857. Nearby, another instructor asks if Ho Jin-chan will be alright, and the elder asks if his colleague thinks he's embarrassed. To him, the MC deserved to get the badge after showing his skills in a fair fight. The colleague states that the young man is incredible for learning such a wonderful technique, wondering if he learned it from the Guardian. Ho Jianchang states that he probably learned it that way, but the instructor isn't so sure about that, questioning why someone who uses blade techniques would teach a sword technique. After the brief conversation, the two part ways. It seems someone was waiting for Ho further ahead, none other than the academy director. He says sternly that the instructor has finally arrived. At that moment, Ho reveals that it was the director who asked him to stop the fight, as he had lost control through sound telepathy. According to Lee Wamyang, anyone would have reacted the same way when facing a technique like that. The instructor recounts that, when he was young, he fought hundreds of battles against both forces of justice and evil, many times alongside the Lord. While the director just observes the instructor in silence, Ho reveals that the director personally assisted the Lord as a guardian, knowing much more than he does. The technique the MC used was identical to the Lord's demonic celestial technique. In fact, it was even better. The celestial demon, the founder of the cult, the greatest martial genius of his time, created the best techniques, and the demonic celestial technique was only passed down to the lords. Even the director reflects that the technique the MC used is similar to the celestial sword's technique, Even better, actually. He wonders how a brat like that could have a technique that surpasses the Lord's demonic celestial sword. Perhaps he managed to read the sapphire monolith that is said to contain the ancestor's epiphany. But he concludes that this must be impossible, since he himself looked at the marks, which are too damaged, and understood nothing. As the instructor begins to suggest whose technique the MC used, the director interrupts him, determining that they should keep it a secret for now. Ho Jian-chan thinks the same about the matter. For him, it's best to keep it a secret for the time being. Suddenly, a girl appears, calling the MC. Young master, she says she was moved after hearing about the sacrifice he made for his subordinate. Cadet 220, Ho Sang-hwa of the Destructive Axe clan, heard that the MC was recruiting and offers to serve him for life. It seems that Cadet 857 liked her, as he even blushes. Even Baek Ji notices his colleague turning red. Soon after, another young man asks the MC to accept him, saying that his martial arts aren't the best and swearing eternal loyalty to the MC on his knees. Cheon Yeo Woon says that anyone can improve their martial arts. More importantly, he's happy about it and welcomes the cadet, who ends up with tears in his eyes, moved by being accepted. Only then does he remember to introduce himself and surprises the MC by bowing his head to the ground, saying his name is Jin Guk. Even Ho Bong, who is usually very fervent, thinks the cadet is overdoing it. But for Baek Ji and Cadet 857, the newbie is just like the bald man. Anyway, Ko Won-her thought they could get more allies with the plan, but it might just be a matter of time now. The MC asks where his other subordinates are, but Cadet 857 thinks they should discuss this somewhere else. After they go to the forest, the MC learns about what happened in his absence, discovering that he lost 2 subordinates during that time. The MC thanks Zhao Wu Min and Ma Chil for trying to persuade other cadets to join them. Finally, he asks where Oh Jiang is. At this moment, his subordinates become tense before telling him what happened. Worried, the MC insists on knowing what happened. Then he is informed of the whole story up to Oh Jiang ending up in the infirmary. Thinking that Ha Il Myung remains audacious, Baek Ji realizes that in this short time, his sovereign has changed, better controlling his anger. He probably won't be so reckless anymore. With the group now complete, Cadet 857 asks the sovereign what he would like to do from there. Meanwhile, the MC thinks he can't complain about Cadet 108's actions since the academy wanted them to fight for the badges. None of his subordinates seem willing to forgive Ha Il Myung, so the MC proposes to them that it's time to settle their debts with the cadet. This makes Cadet 18 apprehensive. Has his sovereign really changed? Elsewhere in the academy, a cadet is telling someone that, as requested, they annoyed Ha Il Myung by taking Baek Ji-ai's badge. Cheon Yu-chan doesn't seem very interested in the guy, saying it looked like someone else was leading the group. And indeed, the leader was Woo Pyong-hak, who was hospitalized. But more importantly, before he could finish speaking, Yu-chan inquires if the cadet really thought he would break a promise. Then he shows 2 badges, but says the guy didn't fulfill everything he promised, leaving him irritated and surprised by the statement. According to Yu-chan, the agreement was that the cadet would help him conquer Baek Ji-ai. But that didn't happen. Nervously, the cadet asks what Yu-chan wants him to do. He says he doesn't need anything grandiose, just that Baek Ji-ai experiences even worse despair than before, stating that it's necessary to go through bad things to appreciate the good. And now that he thinks about it, he believes they don't have anyone suitable to be a group leader. The cadet gets even more irritated hearing this. Then Yu-chan calls one of his subordinates, named Yun-pa, saying he'll give the cadet another chance, who immediately gets excited about the opportunity. Yu-chan orders him to join these cadets and finish off Baek Ji-ai's group, more precisely, the MC's group. He warns that Yun-pa shouldn't make silly mistakes like before, and the subordinate promises not to disappoint him. Laughing, he says that if they manage to take the badge from the MC's group, they should form a new group under his command. The other cadet starts trembling with rage, realizing that Yu-chan wants them to be just his lackeys. On another day, the cadets are training hard. They are dedicating themselves to pass the 3rd test. A voice asks if one of them is Ha Il Myung, the leader of Group 6. The one asking is Yun-pa, cadet number 200, who introduces himself to the other. Cadet 108 soon recognizes a familiar face. He is staring at the other cadet, who looks away. He remembers that this guy helped him chase Baek Ji-ai the previous day and asks what they want. Cadet 200 is direct, saying he needs his help to get a badge and pass the 3rd test. Since Ha Il Myung sees no benefit in this, he tells the guy to leave. Then, to get his attention, Cadet 200 says he is after Cheon Yeo Woon's group. This makes Cadet 108 stop immediately to better understand the conversation. Yunpa, smiling, says he owes this to the MC because he had to go through a lot thanks to him. He states that if they get the badge, the MC's group will be disbanded, and no one will want to follow someone who has lost the group twice. Moreover, the chances of the MC failing the third test and being disqualified would increase. Hearing this, Ha Myung reflects on whether he has any choice but to cooperate with him. He then decides to work with Cadet 200, who thanks him for making a wise decision, and Ha Myung wants to know when they will attack. Confident, Yunpa says they will attack immediately. This makes the other smile darkly. He likes the style of the new companion. In a part of the forest, the MC's group is discussing something. Suddenly, someone calls them miserable rats, making them turn around to find out who said that. Yunpa's and Ha Myung's group has just found them. Cadet 108, with his sword raised, says the group loves to hide in the mountains, but the MC smiles at the provocation, saying that they were about to go after them. Then he thanks them for coming by themselves. Ha Myung shouts angrily that the MC must not understand the situation to be laughing, but the MC retorts that he should be the one saying that. At that moment, the cadet, who was supposed to be just a lackey, shouts for the group to lower their swords, which surprises the group leaders, since it seems that this cadet and his companions are no longer on the side of the other two. Ha Myung, irritated, wonders what is going on. Then the MC stares at the duo. Who is the real idiot in that place? 4 hours before this, in the field behind the specialist training center, someone asks if Cadet Pyonghak will be alright alone, but the cadet tells his colleague that there is nothing he can do, as they asked him to go alone. Pyonghak says they might have their own group with a badge, but the colleague says that one badge won't be enough for 20 people and will lead to fights. Still, he insists it will be worse if they don't have a badge. Moreover, they cannot be afraid to get their hands dirty if they want to stay in the academy. They can't give up just because they are weak. The cadet remains apprehensive about using their former leader as a bargaining chip. Pyonghak says the colleague shouldn't worry about the group and promises to give him a position if he becomes the leader. Suddenly, someone appears in front of them, leaving Pyonghak stunned. He has no idea where the MC came from, but Cheon Yeo Woon calmly asks why the surprise. The MC didn't come alone. The whole group appears next to him to further shock the other cadet. Baekji also appears, asking if the guy made a deal using him. They are all shocked that Cadet 18 has shown up there. Then Pyonghak asks if the group came for revenge for the previous day. Immediately, Ko Won-hee roars if the guy really thought they wouldn't take revenge after being ambushed by those rats. Behind Pyonghak, the cadets comment that it will be dangerous to fight against the MC and Baekji. They might end up losing their dantian. Nervous, their leader shouts to stop being idiots because they are outnumbered, but the MC says he is the idiot for saying these things in front of him. The guy barely has time to turn around, and the MC is already charging at him. He grabs Pyonghak's arm, thinking that he has to control his power before hitting him. Even so, the guy ends up spitting after the blow, which is so strong it makes him disappear, as he is thrown without being able to react. Seeing their leader's body being thrown in the air like a sack of potatoes leaves the cadets dumbfounded. Pyonghak even bounces on the ground before finally falling, and his companion screams for him desperately. Foam starts to come out of Pyonghak's mouth while his companions remain stunned by what happened. Meanwhile, the MC realizes he didn't even come close to controlling his power. Suddenly, someone grabs the cadet by the chest. Ho Bong, enraged, wants to know where the badge he and his group took from Ojang the previous day is. He reveals that the badge is with Cadet 108. Cadet 857 was already expecting this, but the MC doesn't believe that the ambitious one would leave the badge with these guys. The bald guy, angry at the response he got, punches the other cadet furiously. Then Baekji grabs his arm to stop him. Ho Bong turns around angrily, asking if he is sentimental now that the guys are from his old group. Ignoring him, Cadet 18 inquires about what they meant before with making a deal in his name. Thus, the cadet explains that Cheon Yuchan told them to put Baekji in check by attacking and stealing the badge. The mention of Yuchan's name catches the MC's attention. Cadet 18 seems frustrated, thinking he had nothing more to do with Yuchan, and yet everything that happened was part of his plan. He then seriously asks if they would get a badge for what they did and, receiving a positive answer, says they are all a bunch of trash. More angry with them than Baekji, the bald guy curses the cadet while hitting him again. He throws the guy to the ground, shouting that he will do to him what they did to Oh Jang. The cadet doesn't even resist, just seems to accept the beating. Suddenly, someone behind the bald guy asks him to wait. Ho Bang turns around angrily, asking what they want with him. Then, telepathically, Cadet 857 says that beating this guy isn't enough and that they can deceive their group. He asks seriously if Cadet 670 really believes in Cheon Yuchan's words. The cadet doesn't understand what Ko Wang-her means by this. Then he asks if Cadet 670 thinks he will really get a badge from Cheon Yuchan. Confused, the cadet says the young master promised. Just to cause discord, Cadet 857 says that since they are a group of 20, Cheon Yuchan must have promised 2 badges. This leaves the other cadet in shock, as if it wasn't really like that. And behind him, the group starts to discuss, thinking there would be 2 badges that would stay with the group. Then Cadet 857 explains that first they were deceived and now they are fighting among themselves. But the other doesn't understand how they were deceived. He reveals that Cheon Yuchan knew about the problems with the number of group members and that if they fight among themselves, they will do what he wants. Meanwhile, the group continues to argue, thinking they were just pawns in a game. Seeing their reaction, Cadet 857 can't help but smile. He says that if they are really angry, they should go after revenge. This brings us back to the moment when Cadet 670 turns against the leaders of his group, who find themselves surrounded. Young Pa asks what the meaning of this is. Cadet 670 says they must think they are a bunch of idiots if they thought they could use a badge as collateral. Looking at the MC from the corner of his eye, Yunpa says they must have been convinced by someone. Even knowing the cadet is referring to him, the MC says nothing. The bald guy shouts that they couldn't even get the instructor's badge due to lack of skill. They are rats who were ambushed. This makes Ha-Il Myung furious, claiming that the bald guy dared to say he lacks skill while they were rats with their tails between their legs. With his angry colleague by his side, Cadet 857 laughs, saying that it doesn't matter what happens, the other won't start running like a rat. Anyway, they have no intention of letting Cadet 108 escape. Looking at how they are cornered, Ha-Il Myung reflects that this is not the time to be proud. Maybe he should try to escape. But if he abandons his group, he knows he will fail the 3rd test. Worse, if he fails again, he will lose all chances of serving Cheon Yuchan. So he needs to avoid that. At this moment, Yunpa turns to Galyeon, saying that there must have been a misunderstanding, that Cheon Yuchan told him he would make Cadet 670 and his group his servants, so they should believe him. Then Cadet 670 asks if Yuchan will give badges to all of them, and Cadet 200 becomes suspicious of the question. Thus, Galyeon says that to have 19 people as subordinates, 2 badges would be needed. Yunpa realizes that this was what motivated their betrayal and knows he needs to persuade them but can't promise anything alone. He ends up saying he will personally ask Yuchan, so they will receive the 2 badges. The proposal catches Cadet 670's attention, and Yunpa reflects that he is not lying, as he will only ask Yuchan to decide whether or not to grant the request. With a serious look, Galyeon says that the proposal is attractive but questions whether the cadet will be able to endure it. He does not understand what the other meant by enduring. Then the MC appears behind him, and Yunpa has to see if he can handle him. Cadet 200, surprised, barely knows how to react, but he still manages to evade Cheon Yeo Woon's attack. At that moment, Ha-Il Myung grabs his sword to attack the MC, who moves extremely quickly and manages to hold Cadet 108's sword with his hands. More than that, he is able to break his opponent's sword with one hand. The MC throws a threatening look at Ha-Il Myung, who is in a panic. That was a wooden sword imbued with the key of the 7 stars. It shouldn't break so easily. To top it off, he gets hit again. This time it was Baek Ji who attacked him, throwing the guy back. Severely injured, Cadet 108 struggles to get up after the blow. Then he starts practically dragging himself on the ground, and Baek Ji declares that he will be his opponent. Ha-Il Myung continues to crouch on the ground, complaining that he was ambushed by that idiot, thinking that his ribs are broken once again. He knows they are at a disadvantage, but there is no option to flee. The rest of the group does not think so, as they start running desperately. Yunpa turns, realizing that his group is trying to flee. They are too scared to face the monstrous Cheon Yeo Woon's group. Seeing this, Cadet 108 yells at his furious group, asking what they think they are doing. In front of him, Baek Ji tells the guy not to get distracted from the fight, making him turn in panic, trying to evade the attacks of Cadet 18, who delivers multiple kicks in his direction. Seeing the unfolding events, Ko Won-her is excited to start the fight. Even the bald guy seems determined, but burning with excitement is the new member of the group, Ho Sang-hwa. Ready, they run towards the other group, each of them hitting an enemy accurately and taking them down. Seeing this, Yum-pa is alarmed by the situation, while Baek Ji-ai continues to kick Ha-il Myeong, this time hitting him in the chest. Cadet 200, irritated and confused about what to do, wonders how they ended up like this. He concludes that if they lost, there is no way to escape. Resisting will only make things worse. Thus, he throws his sword to the ground and bows to the ground at the MC's feet, shouting that he surrenders and that victory belongs to young Master Cheon Yeo Woon. Seriously, the MC asks what the meaning of this is. With his head on the ground, Cadet 200 says that the fight has already been decided and asks the MC to show mercy since he is a candidate for the throne. Smiling, he thinks that even if he is angry, Cadet 7 won't be too harsh with someone who has surrendered. But the MC holds his head, asking what he meant by mercy. Then he lifts Yum-pa's face, holding him by the hair while Cadet 200 screams in pain. The MC wants to know why he should accept his surrender. If he didn't want to fight, he shouldn't have acted like a rat. But Cadet 200 screams because Cheon Yeo Woon is doing this to an opponent who has surrendered. With a frightening face, the MC tells him to shut up and punches Yum-pa's face into the ground, making a hole with his face. The other cadets are in shock seeing this happen, but it's not over yet. The MC drags Yum-pa's head, saying with a terrifying expression that he has to pay for messing with the wrong people, claiming that it hasn't even started. After getting beaten a little more, Cadet 200 starts cursing the MC, claiming that Yu-chan won't let this go unnoticed. Not caring too much, the MC asks if that's really the case, and Yum-pa wonders if he has said too much. Yu-chan commands the largest group in the academy. He has no choice but to think that the MC will at least be intimidated. After taking a deep breath, the MC thanks him for the warning by delivering another blow to Yum-pa, who now thinks that Cheon Yeo Woon is not scared at all. After all, he broke all of Cheon Jang-sum's bones. Then he gets his face smashed into the dirt again. This time it seems he no longer has the strength to get up, and faints, defeated. Wiping his hands, the MC says that if the guy fainted from just this, if he used all his strength, he would have crushed his head. Then he goes towards the defeated group. They are all kneeling and have had their swords confiscated. They tremble with fear at Cheon Yeo Woon's presence, and the MC asks about Ha-il Myeong. His subordinates have paralyzed him and left him mute, but the guy still thinks he could do something if his ribs weren't broken. Baek Ji-ai asks if the MC wants them to release his pressure points so he can speak again, but he doesn't want to hear the cadet's voice. Instead, the MC grabs Ha-il Myeong's arm, who panics, thinking about what the MC is about to do. He firmly holds one of Cadet 108's fingers, then bends his finger backward, causing Ha-il Myeong to feel a stabbing pain. Even the cadets watch this in horror, but the MC says it was just a little finger, and twists another one. Cadet 108 keeps thinking that this guy is crazy. The MC tells him that Oh-jang felt as much pain as he did. Since they beat him, he must be in even more pain. Upon hearing this, the surrendered cadets from the other group become desperate since they were the ones who beat Oh-jang. Ha-il Myeong, despite the terrible pain, glares at the MC, thinking that he will kill him. No matter what, he will kill him. Despite thinking this, he receives a solid slap from Cheon Yeo Woon, which distorts his face. Looking at his subordinates, the MC says he will give them an order. They must break one leg and all of the fingers of Ha-il Myeong's entire group. This puts the guys in horrible despair, knowing what awaits them, and Gal-yeon realizes in horror that they would have the same fate if they had allowed Yum-pa to convince them earlier. Without any protest, the MC's subordinates agree to carry out the order. Ha-il Myeong remains on the ground, but he has regained consciousness, showing a terrifying expression. Suddenly something changes in him. The bald guy passing by calmly is the first to see Cadet 108 rising, enveloped in a powerful aura. This immediately alarms him, and Ho-bang runs, calling for his sovereign, as Ha-il Myeong moves with incredible speed, catching the MC by surprise. As he appears, lunging at him ready to kill him, Ho-bang can only scream for his leader. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the academy, a group is training for the third test. It is Cheon Yu-chan's group, who notice something strange. Even though they are practicing the 7 demonic swords as in the secret book, something doesn't seem right. Despite all of them being advanced martial artists, they are still unable to recreate the special synergy of the technique. So he tells them to take a break, as he will read the secret book a bit more. Flipping through the book, he he calls for Woo Gum-pil, wanting to know what the cadet thinks as an observer, if they performed the formation correctly. The cadet ponders a bit before saying something, but Yu-chan smiles, saying he shouldn't worry and just say what he thinks. Thus, the cadet says it seemed like they were all performing the same technique at the same time. It looked normal. This was the same opinion Yu-chan had about it. Suddenly, someone catches his attention. Several cadets appear carrying others on their shoulders. As one is with his face covered, the group asks who they are and tells them to stop right there. The cadet says the young master knows him, and Yu-chan recognizes Yun-pa's voice. He wants to know what happened to his face and who he is carrying. Then he throws the body on the ground, revealing it was Ha-il-myung being carried. Instead of feeling pity for his subordinate, Yu-chan expresses revulsion towards him. The men who came with Yun-pa throw other bodies on the ground, and Yu-chan sees that they are Baek Ji-ai and Ko Wang-her, subordinates of Cheon Yeo Woon. Yun-pa reveals that the other body with the bandaged face is Cadet 7. Convinced, Yu-chan asks what they did to leave him like this, and Cadet 200 tells that if it weren't for Ha-il-myung, it would have been their end, revealing that Cadet 108 learned the bloodthirsty demonic reverse technique, which shocks the young master. The technique makes you stronger by reversing the flow of your blood points but damages the chi points and drives the user mad. A dangerous technique. Calling the guy an idiot, Yu-chan thinks he must have gone crazy and attacked everyone indiscriminately, regardless of ally or enemy. Anyway, he congratulates them since he didn't expect so much from them and was impressed by what they did. He creates a key blade before they could take the MC to the infirmary, striking the opponent who is unable to resist. It's clear that he's severely injured, and laughing, Yu-chan says it must have hurt, but since he's not like him, he will leave his dantian intact. Seeing this, Gal-yun thinks that Yu-chan was able to cut the tendons of someone who is so injured. The guy has no mercy. Then he pulls off the fallen opponent's face bandages, asking if he isn't grateful with a smug smile. But his expression changes immediately, for the one before him was actually Yun-pa, so he turns around angrily. And as soon as he does, he's surprised because he was about to be attacked. With no time to dodge, he's hit by a punch right in the middle of his face, thrown backward by the power of the blow. Woo Gum-pil shouts furiously, wanting to know what the idiot Yun-pa is doing. At this moment, a closed fist appears, delivering a powerful blow to the cadet who didn't anticipate this. Despite being thrown back, the guy endures the hit, delivered by none other than Ko Wang-her. The cadet is frustrated. He had just seen the body of Cadet 857 thrown on the ground. Then Ko Wang-her tells his companions to get up, and Baek Ji-ai and the others stand up. Irritated, Ji-lan curses the group that just tricked them all. Looking in the direction where his master was thrown, he wonders if Cheon Yu-chan has been knocked out. At this moment, Woo Gum-pil realizes there might be something wrong with Group 12, since they were the ones who brought these guys. And indeed, Cadet 670 is pointing his sword at them. Frustrated, Jin Yu calls him a snake, asking how he could dare to betray his master. The man behind the mask, smiling, says he didn't believe they had so much faith in Yun-pa. As he removes it, he says that maybe they didn't even need to do this, leaving Yu-chan's group in shock at the face they just saw. And Woo Gum-pil curses him, furious that they didn't notice the ruse. For the one behind the disguise was Cheon Yeo Woon, returning to Ha-il-myung's enraged attack. Baek Ji-ai, noticing that he's heading towards his sovereign, kicks Cadet 108 in the face. Even so, driven mad by the bloody demonic reverse technique, he holds off the attack, leaving Baek Ji-ai anxious. Then he headbutts the opponent back, who realizes there must be something wrong since his ki has increased so much. Cadet 108 goes after the MC, who shows no surprise at seeing him awake, and holds him by the arm. As Ha-il-myung turns to face Cheon Yeo Woon, he can see a smile on the MC's face. Suddenly, all the cadets are in shock. Somehow, Cadet 108 seems to be upside down, and indeed, the MC is holding him up by the arm, then throws him swiftly, making Ha-il-myung slam his back hard into the ground, but without letting go. The guy screams in pain as he's hit again. Then the MC jumps high above his body and starts coming down with force. The impact is so strong that it reverberates through the forest, sinking the head of Cadet 108 into the ground. The MC reflects that he must not be dead, as his body has become more resistant due to the demonic blood. The MC's subordinates appear, and Ko Wang-her says that Cadet 108 using a ban technique will result in his expulsion. When the MC asks about the rest of the group, they show that they have taken care of them, and all that remains is to take them to the infirmary. Hobong starts talking about avenging Oh-jang but is interrupted by Cadet 857, saying they still lack power to fight against the real culprits. Another cadet points out that they need not only numbers but at least 2 more innate experts like Baek Jai. Then Ho Sang-hwa asks if she and Ko Won-her couldn't take on an innate expert together. Gal Yun also joins the conversation, saying that if needed, they can help. They thank them, but even with their help, it would still be dangerous. They should just take them to the infirmary for now. The MC smiles as they continue discussing what to do, until he seriously says that they should prepare to attack Cheon Yeo-chan now. Cautious, Cadet 857 asks if the Sovereign has thought of a plan. Determined, it's clear that their leader has thought of something. Returning to the present, Yeo-chan's allies are frustrated. They were sure they heard Yunpa's voice. Then the MC's voice starts to change to his normal tone. He had used Nano to alter his voice. Behind them, the MC's group comments, amused, about how easy it was to deceive them. Jin Yu is extremely furious, questioning how they dared to use such a trick. Woo Gun Pil tries to stop his companion from attacking recklessly, but it's in vain. Jin Yu, furious, approaches to attack the MC, who easily dodges each of his attacks. Woo Gun Pil knows that his companion has no chance at all. Only now he realizes that his attacks were easily blocked. As if it were nothing, the MC takes the badge from Jin Yu's chest, triumphantly saying that he will keep it. This makes the cadet even more uncontrolled, full of rage. But it doesn't matter. He takes a powerful punch from the MC to the chest, and can't even react to the attack, being thrown backward. At least the cadet doesn't fall upon receiving the blow from Cheon Yeo Woon, and the MC thinks that this is due to the fact that he is an innate expert, and runs to hit him again. Suddenly, Nano warns him that a powerful energy is forming behind him. The MC turns apprehensively to see what's coming, then shouts for everyone to get down. As his subordinates do so, a key blade comes toward them. They can barely believe what just passed by them. While their sovereign tries to block the attack, the blades pass around him, tearing up the ground with their tremendous force. The cadets are astonished by the strength of the key attacks. Then from the midst of a dust cloud, a silhouette appears, saying it was a shame. The MC immediately notices it was Cheon Yeo-chan, who appears amidst the dust with a key sword, saying he wanted to repay for Cheon Yeo Woon's surprise attack. Mockingly, the MC says that he finally woke up after all this time. He didn't want Yeo-chan to use the surprise attack as an excuse for losing, leaving the other irritated, questioning if the MC was waiting for him. Yeo-chan reflects that the MC was a weakling when he met him at the training center. He was able to evolve quickly, thinking that he should have cut off his arm a long time ago, and will do so before the MC gets stronger than him. His subordinates realize that for their young master to be so serious, he considers Cheon Yeo Woon a worthy opponent, while the MC's subordinates know that if their sovereign loses here, it will be the end of their group. Cheon Yeo-chan, who was facing the MC, disappears in the blink of an eye. Cheon Yeo Woon realizes that his opponent is coming toward him, using the technique of the demonic phantom blade, about to tear him apart with his key blade. That technique from the Blade clan was capable of rivaling the butterfly dance. Despite the immense fighting spirit of the enemy, the MC decides not to use all his power and counterattacks with a sword technique, but using a key sword only irritated Yeo-chan, who believed that his attack wasn't simple enough to be blocked by a common sword technique. Yeo-chan was right. The MC couldn't predict that his attack would curve and barely managed to dodge. The attack made his group celebrate, while Cheon Yeo Woon's subordinates grew apprehensive. The MC was furious that he had been attacked from a different angle than he had predicted. His attack would have taken off the arm of someone untrained. Moreover, his opponent had more internal energy than him. Yeo-chan could have even fought the senior officer with that power. Yeo-chan revealed that he was aiming to sever the MC's arm, but it didn't work, saying that he should stop using a technique he's not familiar with and use the butterfly dance instead. The MC became serious upon hearing that his technique was incomplete, while Yeo-chan laughed, thinking it obvious that the technique wasn't finished. This made Cheon Yeo Woon think that his opponent might know about the technique from the monolith. But as Yeo-chan mentioned that the MC was just trying out the 7 swords examples given by the instructors, the MC realized that Yeo-chan didn't understand anything. Confident, the cadet showed 5 fingers, indicating 5 techniques, telling Yeo Woon that if he didn't use techniques he really knew, he'd lose an arm after those techniques. This made Cadet 7 ask if his opponent wanted to bet on that. If he was so confident, it would be a favorable bet. Thus, Yeo-chan questioned what the terms of the bet would be. And obviously, What would be at stake would be their badges. Cadet 5 started laughing as if it were really amusing. Since he already had 4 badges, he thought they should also bet Baek Gi to make it more balanced. Cadet 18 couldn't stand that guy persistently coming after him anymore. Yuchan asked if the MC had accepted the terms of the bet. At that moment, Baek Gi wondered if his sovereign would accept it. But seeing how serious Cheon Yeo Woon was about the bet, he reflected that he could trust his leader. Yuchan glanced again at the soldier he desired so much, and in a combat stance, he said the MC could make the first attack, fully convinced he would win. Thus, the MC ran toward him, with 2 fingers positioned to strike him. But Yuchan, who had read the 7 Swords secret book to fight against instructors dozens of times, remained confident. He thought he knew all the flaws of the technique and counterattacked with the demonic phantom blade. And at that very moment, he was surprised by the MC's technique. His blade was worthless, and he panicked. With Cadet 7 getting closer and closer to him, Yuchan wondered if that was really the 7 Swords technique. As it continued, it became harder and harder to block. Feeling cornered, the cadet had no choice but to retreat. Then he jumped high, trying to buy time to counterattack. Cadet 5 tried to use the 5th technique of the demonic phantom blade, but it had no effect. The MC was approaching him too fast. For the first time, Yuchan was truly worried about the fight. Only now did he realize he was being pressured. Cadet 7 didn't stop attacking, not for a moment. And this time, Yuchan couldn't defend himself, being hit by dozens of fast strikes. But one of them was the worst of all. He widened his eyes, realizing it was inevitable. Cheon Yeo Woon stared at him coldly, while severing Yuchan's arm from his body with a single strike. Despite his irreverent personality, Yuchan was a genius who trained and worked very hard. When he entered the academy, he was already an innate specialist, and his efforts there had brought him to the level of a true expert. The subordinates who followed him there were sure that he was the best candidate among them all. But at that moment, Yuchan was kneeling on the ground, suffering from terrible pain from having his arm severed. Cheon Yeo Woon looked at him seriously, saying that he had won the bet they made, while Cadet 7's subordinates were in shock. They couldn't believe their leader had been defeated with just 1 technique. Despite trying to stop the bleeding, Yuchan couldn't even stand up. Then his subordinates ran to try to help him, but the MC pointed a mana sword at the dying man, smiling demonically. If they took another step, he would cut off the remaining arm. Hearing his warning, they decided to step back. Cheon Yeo Woon asked him to hand over what was promised. Defeated on the ground, he wanted to know how he did that. He wanted to know how he performed such an incredible technique with only the 7 demon swords. Relieved, he asked if it was what it seemed to him. So, he wasn't strong enough to discuss sword techniques. Those words hurt the pride of Cheon Yuchan. Being defeated and still hearing the opponent say that he wasn't strong enough for his class like that. He, who had worked so hard to become the next lord, just couldn't take it. He asked for the badges to be handed over. His followers were shaken. Cheon Yuchan, enraged, shouted his opponent's name, telling him not to think this was the end. Exhausted from the battle, he passed out, worrying all his allies, who threatened Cheon Yeo Woon, telling him that he could expect them to take revenge one day, and they handed him the badge. However, he did not like being threatened, and the cadet even had the audacity to repeat the master's words, saying this was not the end. Cheon Yeo Woon was not in the mood and punched the talker in the stomach, leaving a warning for the others not to mess with him again. The young man, after taking that blow to the stomach, didn't feel too well. Caught off guard, he lost his balance and fell to the ground. Even on the ground, he threatened and spoke some words to Cheon Yeo Woon. He also said that they kept their word. So what did that mean? The response he got was that Cheon Yeo Woon never promised to finish everything once he got the badges. The young man, after handing over the badges, didn't understand why he was hit. Cheon Yeo Woon replied that he had learned a great lesson from Cheon Yuchan. Never leave loose ends. The young man on the ground thought Cheon Yeo Woon was very resentful, saying that wasn't how you treat a defeated opponent. And then he got hit again, this time in the face. Cheon Yeo Woon looked at him angrily after landing the blow. This blow also made him fall to the ground again. He lay there after questioning and threatening the victor. Cheon Yeo Woon asked him if it was fine when it was them doing it, but when someone else did the same, it was considered grudge-bearing. He ordered his men to capture all the others and break their arms and legs. Now the tables had turned, and they were going after Cheon Yuchan's disciples. And now they were afraid of what might happen to them. And what was meant to happen did happen. Their arms and legs were broken, and they handed over many badges. The young man was surprised and asked why he was giving him so many badges. Cheon Yeo Woon said he had no reason to keep them all. He made those who followed him even more emotional. After receiving the badges, they thought that everything in that place was about survival and that he didn't need to have given them to them. They also knew that because of today, they would definitely be targeted by the Blade clan. They thought it was better to help him become the next leader, so they all knelt in his presence. Cheon Yeo Woon asked them what they were doing. They were all kneeling and bowing their heads to the ground, swearing loyalty to the young master, Cheon Yeo Woon. And he was looking at those people kneeling, asking him to accept them. His companions were happy because everything had gone according to plan again. On the second floor, in the academy infirmary, the doctor in the infirmary thanked Yeo Woon for sending so many patients right after he had come out of punishment. The nurse looked at the doctor, all smiling, because now there were many wounded to take care of, and he thought the doctor was odd. They were talking among themselves, saying it hadn't been long since they brought him there for internal injuries. They were talking about Cheon Yeo Woon. Who would have imagined he would become a monster? The doctor asked them to stop chatting and help hold that patient. In the infirmary, Oh-jang was recovering, and he thought about how much he admired his sovereign and that he would follow him until the end. In the director's office, he was watching the boy on the floor. It was definitely the reverse bloody demonic technique. The director confirmed this by looking at the boy on the floor. He placed his hand on the boy's chest. With his hands on the chest and head of Ha-il-yang, the director was performing a technique to revive him and extract information about the technique. Ha-il-yang opened his eyes, very startled. He wasn't supposed to be there. He didn't remember this. The director looked at him and said that he had finally regained consciousness. But he asked the director how he had arrived there. He swore he was fighting against the damned Cheon Yeo Woon. Sitting in his chair, the director told him that here, the one asking questions was him. And very seriously, he asked how he knew how to use the reverse bloody demonic technique. Realizing that the director was aware of what he had done, the director stared at him, very angry. Ha-il-myung got flustered and said he didn't know what the director was talking about. But the director wasn't there to play games, so he decided to lift him using his mana, making the individual levitate in the air. Terrified, he screamed, asking why the director was doing that to him. Then the director pulled him toward himself using mana. He could no longer control his own body. His body was being controlled in the air, and he started shouting to try to break free from that power. The guards were outside the director's room but heard nothing because the room was covered with a barrier. He kept shouting, hoping someone would hear him. The director warned him that he was blocking all sounds from leaving that room with his aura. No one could hear the screams of Cadet 108. The director, saying his name and the clan he belonged to, mentioned that officially he wasn't affiliated with any other clan. Pointing to a scroll on the table, he said that the information was what he had submitted. Looking at the information and hearing what the director was saying, he knew there was no more hope for him. The director approached and said they might think they were good at keeping secrets. But seeing how he was able to learn the ultimate reverse bloody demonic technique, which had been lost for decades, at just 17 years old, now his whole clan was under suspicion. Looking at him, the director asked if he wouldn't mind if the Sword Warriors clan were wiped out. And using mana, he twisted Ha-il-myung's leg. With that action, the boy felt a bit of pain. The director still held him in the air, trying to extract answers from him. Realizing he wouldn't succeed, he placed his hand on Ha-il-myung's neck. Looking at him, the director said he already knew he had submitted the information to the cult. He also said he knew that the Sword Warriors clan was one of the two shadow clans of the sword, a secret organization of the Sword Clan. Realizing there was nothing more to be done, as the director seemed to have proof, he knew that if he was caught, things would become difficult for him. So, he decided to abandon this world and cease being evidence. The director, still with his hands on his neck, realized when Ha-il-myung gave up on life. The director roared in anger, placing the boy on the floor. He couldn't believe he had lost him that way. The director hadn't expected the boy to bite his tongue and reverse his ki flow. Desperate, he tried to control the boy's ki. The director concluded that everyone from that clan wasn't planning on being captured so easily. Looking at the boy there, he realized it would be difficult to get evidence from that clan. There was nothing more he could do for Ha-il-yang. That afternoon, at 6 p.m., in the academy's cafeteria, Cheon Yeo Woon was being surprised by several cadets calling his name. They were arguing about who had arrived first. They were desperate to speak with the young master. Heo Bong quickly controlled the commotion, asking them to form a line. He thought it was rude to ask to speak, causing such confusion. If they had something to discuss with his sovereign, they should line up in order of arrival. They realized there was no other way and began to line up. Heo Bang's friends knew he was really good at handling such situations, and the rumors spread faster than they imagined. There was no doubt Cheon Yeo Woon had defeated the most respected instructor there and also beaten Cheon Yu-chan, considered one of the strongest. They knew their sovereign had been recognized as a candidate for lordship alongside Cheon Moo-yeon of the Black Clan. It was natural for him to become the center of attention. Several cadets came forward, introducing themselves, mentioning their clans, and saying they would like to help him. Cheon Yeo Woon looked at all those cadets wanting to join his team and felt proud. After hearing all the cadets interested in joining his team, he thanked everyone who came forward to become members of his group, but he had something to say. He wasn't just looking for people for that test. He wanted people to become his companions and subordinates to create a new demonic cult. Even though it would be a tough journey, he would walk alongside everyone. If they weren't willing to join that journey, they would have to politely refuse the request. His old companions were very proud of how much he had evolved. He also said he would change the 6 cult clans. Instead of showing hostility toward the 6 main clans, he preferred to change the cult itself as his cause. But he still didn't have the support the other clans had. How many would really stay? Some cadets were already standing up, apologizing, and leaving. Not many stayed, and they couldn't be blamed. Even so, Cheon Yeo Woon was satisfied, because there were still enough cadets who hadn't stood up and left. And gradually, they began to rise, introduce themselves, and confirm their presence. Many of them were eager to take part in that journey. Someone called for Master Cheon Yeo Woon. Cadet 77 recognized the one calling for his master. Raising his hand, he asked if he could speak with him beforehand. Cadet 857 recognized the one wanting to be heard. He was sure it was Moon Gye. Quickly, Cadet 77 Zhao Wumin told his sovereign that he should accept that person. His master, turning to him, asked why he should accept him. His cadet informed him that this person was Moon Gye. He was the grandson of the 9th elder of the council. The top of the demonic celestial cult is the lord and the 12 elders of the council beneath him, except the council of elders who were not from one of the 6 main clans. The 9th elder, Moon Yun, as a member of the famous Black Dragon Palm clan, achieved his position through his accomplishments during the last great demonic war. And the young man who wanted to speak to the young master is exactly the grandson of this great elder. Cadet 77 and Cadet 857 noticed that the 9th elder's grandson was limping and thought something had happened to him. Upon reaching the young master, Moon Gye asked if he had 6 badges. He seriously responded that one of the 6 was his. The 6 main clans had tried to recruit him as their subordinate several times, but he refused. So Cheon Yu-chan approached him for the 3rd time. Moon Gye apologized to Master Cheon Yu-chan and reported that he hadn't changed his mind about remaining neutral, saying he only wanted to focus on the academy for now. That's when he suddenly attacked the boy, and in the end, he was defeated. Not only did the young master take his badge, but he also broke his left leg and right arm, leaving, saying that if he wanted to take the 3rd test, he'd better join his group. His cadets were outraged because, besides being envious, Moon Gye also had an obsession with talented people. The young man planned to join any group and seek revenge once he recovered. But no one wanted to accept him, given his broken leg and arm. The young master replied that he was still sure someone would accept him because of his skills. Moon Gye mentioned that a leader had accepted him, but withdrew the offer 2 hours later due to Cheon Yu-chan's interference. The cadets were happy because their sovereign had cut off the arm of the unfortunate person who was mistreating the boy. Moon Gye continued saying that regardless of the 3rd test, he wanted to get revenge as soon as possible when he heard that the young master had cut off his arm. He didn't know whether to be happy or disappointed, feeling that he should take responsibility. The young master Cheon Yeo Woon said he knew Moon Gye was having trouble but asked how he had come to that conclusion. Feeling very sad, the young man knelt on the ground as best as he could, since his leg was still weak. He apologized and said he hadn't been careful with his words, as he was a bit depressed, but he hoped the young master would accept him. Cheon Yeo Woon asked him if that meant he intended to join him on the journey, or if he just wanted to be part of the group. At that moment, he didn't know what to say, as he had received instructions upon entering the academy to remain neutral and not join any group. But he was also told that if he ever found someone he wanted to serve, to observe carefully before making his decision. Looking at the young master, Moon-gyu said he could join the group for now and think about becoming his subordinate later, swearing he wouldn't take long to have an answer. The young master looked at him and said that if that was the case, then he was rejecting him. The boy hadn't expected that, and was devastated because he really needed to join the group. That's when Cadet 77, Jao Woo-min, intervened for him, saying it was a complicated situation because it hadn't been reconsidered. He thought the sovereign might regret letting such a talented person go, and wondered how he could give up so easily on someone other candidates were eager to recruit. Cadet 857, Go Wang-hul, also intervened, saying he thought Cadet 408 was skilled enough to be a leader and decided to kneel for him. The young master said that if he accepted him just because of the situation, how would that be fair to the others he had rejected? He couldn't create exceptions to his own rules. So the young man, Cadet 408, who was on his knees, asked the young master for just 4 days to respond. The young master wanted to know why he was so desperate to join his group. Cheon Yeo. While the boy was talking, the nanotechnology was scanning his face to see if the cadet was lying. The young master was amazed because the nano never failed, yet at that moment, it couldn't register the young man's facial features. The nano informed him that it was impossible to analyze the target's face. His technology explained that it was impossible to analyze the target because the face was covered with artificial skin. Cheon Yeo Woon's eyes widened as he realized that the skin on the ears and back of the neck looked different. It was a human skin mask. Why would he be hiding his face? After further analysis, the nano determined that the target was between 15 and 17 years old. It also analyzed that the target's gender was female. The young master deduced that the young man was hiding his identity. He had a strange feeling that he was being observed in his ears and neck. How could he notice something that even the left squad hadn't? The young master pointed at the young man and said, "A girl." The boy attentively realized that he wanted to be Master Cheon Yeo Woon's subordinate, and didn't need to think any further, as he was now completely sure. Cadets 857 and 77 found it strange that the boy changed his mind so quickly. Frowning, the cadet told the young master he wanted to talk to him about something privately later. Cheon Yeo Woon understood and said that was fine. The cadets were pleased with the young man's entry into the team. They welcomed him, and some introduced themselves. Everyone was very happy. The young master thought that now that the group had grown significantly, he should reorganize them. The leader of Group 1 would be Go Wang-hul. The leader of Group 2, Baek Ji-ai. The leader of Group 3, Ho Sang-hwa, leader of the female cadets. The leader of Group 4, Jao Woo-min. The leader of Group 5, Gal Yun, a former group leader. And thus Cheon Yeo Woon led the largest faction in the academy. It was already late, 8 o'clock at night. Behind the training center for specialists, Moon-gyu was revealing information that the face belonged to her younger twin brother. She explained that before she was born, her father was sent on a mission where he was killed by the forces of evil, and due to that shock, her mother died. Her brother, who was born due to complications during childbirth, was born with disabilities, and her grandfather hid that fact from everyone. She turned out to be a martial arts genius, but that would come to light at some point. She explained that she hid her identity because the 6 clans wanted her clan to serve them no matter what. He understood because he knew that traditionally, the clan leader position was always held by a man. In those circumstances, marriage could force her into a situation, and she must have found a way to push Manhua to join the academy and die in an accident. She mentioned that this is why she suggested going to the academy dressed as a man. If she achieved good results, even the 6 clans wouldn't mess with them. Cheon Yeo Woon asked her if no one knew her gender, why she used her brother's face instead of her own. She replied that it had to look like something she did on her own. The young master felt sympathy for her, realizing she had grown up without peace. She then asked him not to reveal her secret about wearing the human skin mask. He promised and asked if her voice was also modified. She focused and changed her tone. Her girlish voice responded that of course, otherwise she would have been caught immediately. The young master thought that while she forced her voice, she sounded like a teenage boy going through puberty. But now it was clear she was a girl. She smiled and said she felt much better speaking normally, as her voice became hoarse after forcing it for too long. She had something else to say and nearly forgot. Raising a jar, she said it was time to reapply her mask. If she didn't glue it down every night, it could fall off at any moment. She struggled to remove the mask. As she started to peel it off, smooth, clean, silky hair began to flow out. She became worried because her hair wasn't supposed to come loose and untied. Looking and smiling at him, she said it had been difficult to apply the glue with only one arm. He was still stunned because she was truly beautiful. The young man, who had previously been strong, now found himself a little flustered. Smiling with kind eyes, she told him it was good to have him. He became even more embarrassed upon hearing her say those things. Taking that jar, he asked her to please lend her a hand. She wanted him to help her stick the face on. Smiling, she asked if he understood why it would be so troublesome. The more she spoke, the redder he became. He was wondering if this was what a beautiful person looked like. She told him how difficult it was to train since she wasn't fully recovered. He asked if she was going to the specialist center and asked where his dormitory was. She said it was in Building 4, Room 7. Smiling, she said that since she had joined his group, she thought it would be better for him to move his things there. Cheon Yeo Woon just watched her leave. Realization gradually sank in about what she was implying. When he remembered where Dormitory 4 was and the commotion the boys made, he was taken aback. Fights over badges were becoming more frequent. Cadet 321 Han Pyong from the Demon Bones clan was engaged in a fight to defend her badge. The fight was tough for her, because she was fighting someone very experienced, even though she used strong techniques and achieved some results. Even when she thought she had the upper hand, it was difficult because she was fighting against the number 3 candidate for Lord of the Spring Clan, Cheon Yeo, who was extremely strong and aggressive. The cadet accompanying him thought that during the 10 days his master was hospitalized, the quality of the cadets had increased, and his master was now over 60 years old, thanks to the medicinal balls. The master yelled at his cadet that they would have to go now that they had badges. He wanted to defeat that monster. He needed to improve his proficiency until he could easily defeat guys like that. In the academy dormitory, Building 4, Room 7, exclusive to Cheon Yeo Woon's group, was Cadet 408, greeting the young master of that dormitory. He found it unpleasant, but of course, she would never be caught with her mask there. Cadets passed by with their towels ready for bathing. He felt a bit frustrated for not being able to protect Hyo Bang's dignity. The girl was sitting reading while the master watched all those boys getting ready for the bath, discussing who would go first. He looked at her and asked if she was okay. She said she was fine, that it had happened several times before, so she didn't mind anymore, and told him he should also go take a bath. He noticed with his Nano that her temperature suddenly increased, and she was acting like it was nothing, not even able to look him in the eyes now. He thought he should prohibit the boys from being so casual in the room. Cheon Yeo Woon and his subordinates went to the main building to announce the badges they possessed, being officially recognized as leaders for the test. After breakfast, in an empty field behind the dormitory, there were several cadets. Ha-Il Myung told the master that now that he had become the group leader, and would teach the 7 swords to them. Cadet 857 agreed, knowing that the sovereign was already busy teaching the members of his group. Cheon Yeo Woon realized they were speaking as if they cared about him, but he knew the two had already made a bet on who would teach in less time, and other cadets also had the idea of each teaching their own method. Their master said it was fine. They could do whatever they wanted. He knew they were competing against each other. He thought a healthy competition wouldn't be bad, and there were some leaders complaining that they needed more members, and they would like the young master to take care of their members since they were still not complete. Cheon Yeo Woon was thinking, and other leaders needed members, but some wouldn't speak because they didn't like help. So he gathered the cadets and began teaching the 7 swords technique. Moon-gyu was watching his master demonstrate for the cadets. She didn't think the young master would be able to see all of them since there were so many. Everyone was very excited because they would finally learn martial arts from the sovereign. He was nervous because it was the first time he was teaching but thought he should start. He announced that he would first do a slow demonstration and that they should watch. He began with his moves teaching. He also breathed correctly and performed all the necessary positions, leaving his hair impressed at how he could be so perfect. Cadet 408 thought it was impossible since she was in detention for 5 to 7 days, but still managed to perform the technique perfectly, and he continued with his martial arts show. When he finished, he asked everyone if they understood. He said he would help everyone, so they could repeat the 7 swords. Some thought the leader would teach them individually, and didn't believe it. They thought this opportunity was great. It didn't come every day. One of them, very excited, asked who would be first. The young master asked what he was talking about. They needed to do it all at once to be quick. It would take an eternity if done one by one. At that moment, his hair looked a little sad, and they started asking their young master questions. They were like ants in the middle, trying to understand why it couldn't be one by one. He ordered everyone to perform the demon swords technique all together. This left the cadets wondering how it would be done. Cadet 408 thought that perhaps it would help them to form together, but she didn't believe he could instruct them all at the same time. She thought she should watch and assist him. One of them wanted to try alone first. Young Masters was furious and demanded they perform the first technique immediately. He asked the Nano to activate augmented reality, analyzing the information using tutorial mode, and to inform him if any of them made mistakes. The Nano understood and was implementing tutorial mode for 17 people, configured for the 7 demon swords technique. He asked them to start with the first technique, the first sword. Cadet 408 thought it was going okay, but some of them were making mistakes. However, the Nano was informing him of everything. She thought she should use telepathy to tell the young master who was making mistakes, but the young master said they were finishing, so he would call them. He told them that they were not applying enough force in the arm movement of the first move. If they started like this, the others would be weaker. He also helped number 95 with his balance, as it was poor during the technique execution. He told the next ones that during the third move, they should move the right foot forward, but he had moved the left. He also called number 23, who was Hyobang, and warned him that his sword seemed to be losing power, and in the third move, he was only using the strength of his wrist. Cadet 408 couldn't believe he had managed it because she was also observing Hyobang, and he had perfectly noted his mistakes. He also called the next one, 508, saying that every time he made the movement, he took a step, which could hurt his knee. After that, he asked everyone to repeat the technique and do it a little slower while paying attention to his tips. And they all began to repeat the movements. Cheon Yeo Woon was observing everyone, using his Nano to scan them. He knew there was much to fix, as they needed to understand some things on their own and correct them later. Cadet 408 noticed that the information was better than before. He was truly incredible. He thought the cadets weren't so naive as to repeat mistakes with this method. 7 days would be enough, but it ended up taking more time than he expected for everyone to master the techniques that the martial clan cadets achieved in 7 days. There was also Ojam, who was delayed due to his 5-day hospitalization, but fortunately, he was quite talented, so he managed to catch up in those 5 days. 10 days later, everyone was well trained. Ha-Il Myung was dissatisfied because he had lost his bet. The winner thought that he had to be a real man to admit defeat, and was happy with his opponent. Ha-Il Myung asked how he had managed it because another had taken 9 days while he had done it in 7. Go Wonghul said that it was actually quite easy. He just needed to beat them enough until they learned. His opponent looked surprised that he hadn't thought of that. Baek Ji-ai, Sanghwa, and Zhao Wu-min managed to complete their groups with some of the skilled recruits. Cadet 708, Chai Taek Jiam, joined voluntarily. There was also Sanghwa's acquaintance, Woo So-young, who said that if they proved their skills, she swore eternal loyalty. She eventually lost to the master with a butterfly dance and 3 techniques. And with that, 2 innate specialists became subordinates of Cheon Yeo Woon. In these 10 days, Go Wonghul and Ho Sanghwa, who were already diligent in their training, also became innate specialists. Cheon Yeo Woon was there congratulating and thanking everyone for their achievement, and his disciples were grateful to have him as their sovereign. Go Wonghul said he still had much to learn and, as it was his first sword, he should work on himself to avoid being a burden. Speaking this way made several others envious. One of the cadets, who said he didn't want to interfere, thought that the first sword title should go to Baek Ji-ai or Mu Gia. However, some thought the master was right about the colleague being the first sword. Others thought that if he wanted a title, it should be from second to third sword. Cheon Yeo Woon watched the entire discussion about positions. Chai Taek thought in the master's mind that due to the many servants he had, it was the ideal moment to create a hierarchy. Loyalty was important, but in a cult of strength, hierarchy was also crucial for maintaining control. He thought she was right. To lead people, a hierarchy was necessary. But it was almost time for the third test, and it would be bad if someone got injured during a battle. So he stood there for a while thinking while all the cadets continued arguing among themselves. Suddenly, He asked everyone to be quiet because he had something to say. He said he had heard them and wanted to take this chance to establish a hierarchy. He announced that he would pick the 6 most skilled and give them the title of 6 swords, with each one equal to the other. Cadet 52 asked the sovereign why he had chosen 6 swords. He explained that when they graduated, they would face the 6 clans and that he wanted 6 swords to lead the attack against them. This left some cadets worried, and others were thinking that they would end up dealing with the 6 clans to put in 6 swords, thinking it would only repeat the problem. He also mentioned that it wasn't just because one got the title that it would be theirs forever. There would be an annual competition where the strongest would win the title. Baek Ji thought that if he won the air battle and became the lord, it would end the current system where the 6 clans maintained the main power. Cheon Yeo Woon said that since they had the 3rd test ahead, he would simplify the decision. Anyone who was not an innate specialist or above should step back. Did anyone have any objections to the chosen ones? When he was about to say who the first sword should be, he was interrupted by Baek Ji. Baek Ji thought there should be a hierarchy even among the 6 swords. Cadet 52 also thought that since they were doing this, they should be chosen based on their abilities. Cheon Yeo Woon thought they had a good argument, as it would be bad if they ended up injured or only used techniques from the 3 stars. Cadet 408 from the Black Palm Dragon clan said that, since he was injured, he would like to pass. Others were disappointed because they really wanted to fight him, but he said it was a shame, as he would be able to fight next year. Meanwhile, someone started showing off by taking off the top part of his kimono. This made the girls upset. Go Wang-ho was flaunting his body. He wanted to start the combat quickly and prove that he should be the first sword. Baek Ji wondered why he had to take off his shirt to compete. Go Wang-ho, after taking off his shirt, called the girls to start the fight. They thought he was an arrogant, muscular guy. The 3 began the contest to see who would be the first sword. The fight seemed quite intense. Chai Taek Jiam from the Westgate clan didn't think he was as talented as Moon-gyu but hoped he wouldn't take it easy on him. Baek Ji from the Gentle Kick clan said he would let him make the first move. He mentioned that it was better not to regret letting him start. He launched the attack. The 2 girls were still fighting with Cadet 857, but suddenly, they started fighting each other, and he noticed an opening. So, he decided to strike both of them at once. They just needed to take a distance to attack him again. One blamed the other for disrupting the strike they were going to deliver to the cadet. They left Cadet 857 aside and began to fight among themselves. The 2 kept exchanging insults, saying one was useless and the other too big. They were copying each other, but the fight wasn't getting anywhere. Cheon Yeo Woon noticed that they had been there for at least 30 minutes, and should be finishing soon. Then the red-haired cadet thought she had found a point to finally finish Manhua. But all she did was create an opening for herself to be finished. Fallen with an injured shoulder, she found it all very unfair. On the ground, she screamed that her shoulder was out of place, and she couldn't believe she had lost to the other one. Now the fight was among the boys. Go Wang-ho wanted to finish off 2 at once. He was taking the fight to a very high level with 3 people. But Baek Ji was not as weak as he imagined, and the 2 were having a battle at a compatible level. He was already analyzing his opponent, thinking he had strong arms, and that attack would be a lost cause. Go Wang-ho said his kicks were much more powerful than that. Returning to the fight, Chai Taek was descending from the sky with his attack, saying he would steal their first sword. However, those 2 were very skilled and wouldn't be caught by surprise. In his full attack, he forgot about the other opponent, Manhua, who was right behind him. He tried to protect himself from her attack by striking backward. He immediately fell into the attack of the 2 who were fighting each other. Now there were 3, Go Wang-ho, Baek Ji and Manhua. Cheon Yeo Woon, seeing this, realized that Chai Taek had dug his own grave. With only 3 left, he wanted to end the fight quickly and decide who would be the first sword. Go Wang-ho was calling the other 2 to fight. That took a bit longer, and Manhua would give up trying for first or second place, settling for 3rd sword. She thought she had a lot of energy, but those 2 were on another level. The 2 continued as they wanted to be the first sword. Baek Ji noticed that the reach and weight of his opponent were making it very difficult. Since Go Wang-ho was from the Black Fist clan, specialized in fist techniques, he had an idea to attack from below. Fearless of missing, he launched a powerful kick to his opponent's abdomen. That attack made his opponent go a fair distance away. Baek Ji didn't give his opponent time to recover. He immediately launched several strikes to decide once and for all that he would be the victor, throwing his opponent far away. Now on the ground, Go Wang-ho admitted he had lost, to the delight of many cadets who were cheering for Baek Ji. First sword, Baek Ji, Second sword, Go Wang Ho. Third sword, Ho Sanghua. Fourth sword, Chai Take Jiam. Fifth sword, Wu So Yung. Sixth sword, Moongye. Cheon Yeo Woon was facing the structure that would confront the 6 main clans. But there was still much to be done. He himself needed to become stronger so that no one from the hidden clan would dare challenge him. On the day of the test, around 8 a.m., in the director's office, he was holding the document and asking if it had been approved. The Grand Guardian was in front of him and had brought that document. He answered that it was decided by the superiors the day before yesterday and received final approval from the Lord yesterday. To prevent any potential failure, except for the first test, academy tests are decided by the director and instructors after each cadet's admission. But there had never been a change on the test day. The reason was that the test was very easy. He didn't believe that the Lord, who was implementing policies to keep the 6 main clans in line, approved that, and it didn't seem right. However, the Grand Guardian remained silent. He just handed a document to the director, who carefully reviewed all the content of the document, and noticed there were many strange things. After finishing reading, he put his energy into the document, and it burned. He also said he accepted those orders. The 6 clans seemed to be trying to gain something from that third test, but whatever it was, they would only end up cornered. It was around 10 hours at the large training center of the Demon Academy. The candidates for the third test were already there. Cheon Yeo Woon knew it wouldn't be easy, but they were confident they would master the 7 swords formation. But it was strange because, after 15 minutes, even the instructors who always arrived before them still hadn't arrived. He heard them and saw they were approaching, but he noticed they were bringing some people who looked like prisoners. He found it odd that those prisoners were being brought to the location of the third test. The director asked if they had prepared well for the test over the past 20 days. He mentioned that before starting the test, they had to give a last-minute notice, and almost everyone was in shock. Some instructors were throwing several swords onto the ground from a box. The cadets were checking because they were real swords, not wooden ones as they had been told. The director said that originally the test would have been to defeat the instructors using the demon sword formation, but the new test wasn't so different. They would still defeat enemies. The opponents would be the prisoners chained in front of them, members of the Martial Arts Alliance of the Forces of Justice. To pass the test, they had to execute them. In other words, it would be their first real combat experience. The director warned that the enemies had guaranteed freedoms if defeated, so they would fight with everything they had. Cheon Yeo Woon looked to the side and saw that all his cadets were terribly frightened. Their mood also worsened significantly. He couldn't blame them. They were now literally forced to fight to the end. They were informed they would start with the cadet group 700 Sa Na Chuk. The instructors told the prisoners to be quiet as their pressure points would be released. They also began to remove the bags covering their heads. The director shouted loudly that they could begin. The prisoner was in the middle, surrounded by all the cadets of that group. The cadets were visibly anxious, and many were scared. The prisoner was also frightened because he had only accepted because they said they would punish him if he didn't, and would free him if he did. But he couldn't fight because the opponents were just kids. Then the third formation by Sa Ma Chuk was called. The cadets, under orders, quickly began to react. The prisoner was scared because he realized those kids were taking it seriously. Cheon Yeo Woon observed and saw that the members were facing each other, and it was clear they could master the technique. Then the combat began with the cadets against the prisoner. He was caught off guard by several blades. It was difficult for him to dodge so many attacks at once. Due to his muscles still being stiff, he wasn't performing well. The group saw a chance and made the second formation, but something went wrong, and the formation was broken, giving the prisoner a chance to notice an opening and launch an attack. But the cadet, scared, closed his eyes in the face of imminent failure. However, the prisoner hesitated and couldn't continue his attack. He stopped before his blade reached the cadet's neck. Cheon Yeo Woon noticed when he hesitated, and as soon as he mentioned it, all the cadets saw an opening and put into practice what they had learned. In their looks of panic, fear, and pain, it was evident that this was the first time they had such direct contact. The prisoner was also crying, whether it was from emotion, finally being free, or remorse for having to fight those kids. The fact is he was defeated and thrown to the ground. Several of the cadets couldn't recover easily. However, the others watching went wild and thought it was very good. One of the cadets was really impressed because he noticed that the prisoner hesitated, but they were still forced to continue the fight, and their number was announced. stating that they had passed the test. But of everyone, only 7 were approved. Those who disrupted the formation were failed. Cheon Yeo Woon realized that this was what they wanted, leaving everything to the cadets. Even though the test was in groups, individual performances were assessed. Next was Cheon Moo Jiam's group. Their opponent was a skilled martial artist from the forces of evil. He attacked before anyone could perform an evasive technique. They made the 5th formation, but he managed to cut them before that. The martial artist managed to exploit the cadets' fear, completely nullifying the formation. But he ended up lowering his guard in the end and was finished off by the formation of 5 cadets who didn't let go of their swords. Only 6 people, including Cheon Moo Jiam, passed. He ended up losing half of his men, including Cadet 80, who was one of his trusted subordinates. The next 5 groups would fight life or death battles with the prisoners, but the only group where everyone passed was Cheon Moo Yeon's. The director was satisfied because nothing bad had happened until that moment. The director noticed they were behind Cheon Yeo Woon. They must have decided that they couldn't wait 4 years. 2 of the candidates had their arms amputated, and 1 didn't have his dantian. He wanted to finish him off quickly, so they tried to be clever and change the test, but he wondered if what he planned would work. Next was Cadet 7 Cheon Yeo Woon's group. The cadets were very scared and anxious because the prisoner they were about to face was terrifying. His pressure points hadn't been released, yet he exuded a tremendous murderous aura. He definitely wasn't from the forces of justice, and so the cadets wanted to face him and were already apprehensive. However, Cheon Yeo Woon found it strange. Unlike the others, this prisoner seemed to be looking for someone. But why? That's when he heard in his mind one of the instructors who had fought him before, warning him to be careful. He had suspected something was wrong with the test changing at the last minute. The director shouted for them to begin, and as last time, the prisoner was in the middle, and the cadets were around him, forming their formation. But this prisoner was very different from the others. He quickly positioned himself but did not attack. Cheon Yeo Woon didn't want to take the chance. He had already asked them to form the 4th formation. He soon realized that the prisoner was just staring at him, and made a very joyful face when he managed to find him.